started. Good morning. Welcome. I'm Tiffany Schweitzer. I'm the Vice President of the Trimet Board of Directors. And first, I'd like to introduce a couple new faces for those of you that have been here before. You probably see that there's a couple new faces. And I'd like to introduce Bruce Warner, who will be representing Washington County, and he is taking Rick Van Beveren's place. The governor has also appointed Travis Stovall. Did I say that correctly? Stovall?
That's correct.
Okay, to the board representing the East Multnomah County area, which Lynn Lerbach previously held that area. Excuse me. So both appointments were made as Rick and Lynn's terms have expired. So please help me in welcoming both Bruce and Travis to the board. Briefly, though, even though Rick and Lynn are not here, I would like to honor them as board members. They've done a tremendous job, and I'd like to recognize that. So I'd like to have a motion to approve the resolutions, which I have here. There are two resolutions before you. I have them here somewhere in the midst of this paperwork. Thank you. So, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I move the motion to approve resolution 120222 and 120223.
Thank you, Dr. Bethel, for helping me there.
Second.
All right. So it's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, motion carries. And with that, again, our thanks to both Rick and Lynn. Our second item of business relates to this board reappointing its officers. We do that every 2 years. And so there are two resolutions before you this morning to do that. The first resolution would appoint Bruce Warner as the Trimet Board President, see, that was hard for me to even get out, of the Trimet Board of Directors. And is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I move resolution 1202-24.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is there yes, Dr. Bethel?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. So the motion carries. The second resolution appoints me, Tiffany Schweitzer, as Vice President, and Steve Clark as Secretary Treasurer. The resolution also appoints Bruce Warner, Craig Prosser, and to the Finance and Audit Committee. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. Now, I gladly turn the gavel over to our new president, Bruce Warner. Welcome.
Thank you, Director Schweitzer. I appreciate it. And I appreciate your filling in while we had a vacancy here on the board. Very quickly, I just wanted to say good morning to everybody here. Many of you know me. I've been involved in transportation, land use, economic development for over 30 years here in the Portland area. Most of my time living in Washington County, but I've worked in downtown probably as much, downtown Portland as much as I have elsewhere in terms of my career. I'm here because people know that I have a passion for transit, its importance to the region. The cliche is the triple bottom line, the environment, energy, and the economy are all true, but I also think there's a fourth E, and that's everybody else, because I think it's a great organization that provides a service of choice for many, but also a service of necessity for many others, as we've been listening to the testimony for the last meeting. I'm sure we'll hear today in terms of our other programs. So I want you to know that I've probably worked with Trimet for well over 30 years on various projects and various programs that they have. I'm really pleased to be here, and I look forward to helping the board and the staff move forward on a number of the issues that are confronting Trimet at the moment, and we will get through them. That's my mantra on this one, okay? So again, I just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you. So let's get going. We have a lot on the agenda today, a lot of business, and a lot of folks look like they'd like to testify today. So let's begin with the General Manager's report. Mr. General Manager, you have a report for us?
Well, good morning, and thank you, Board President Warner, and I'd also like to welcome you and Board Member Stovall to the Trimet Board. We're very pleased to have you as part of the board. Let me first touch on ridership. Continues to grow. More than 8.2 million trips were taken on Trimet buses, MAX, and West Commuter Rail during the month of January. That's up about 1.3% overall, but a couple of really interesting milestones within that. Rush hour trips system-wide have now increased for 11 consecutive months. And I've been noting this to you in the past because I think it's also an economic sign that people are beginning to travel more and more to work, which is a very good thing. West continued its double-digit increases now for the 20th month in a row. It was up 17.4% in January compared to the year before, and it's just beginning now its third year of service. And since opening in February 2009, West has increased its ridership by 37% and provided more than 1 million rides overall, so obviously improving, and that's good news. Also wanted to just note a little update on fare enforcement. As you recall, last year I moved the agency toward enforcement over education in terms of the fare system. And I've made it a point to update you on our enforcement efforts over a period of time. For January this year, we actually saw a 48% increase in the citations compared to January of the year before. It also had a significant increase in enforcement from December, which actually had a 19% increase in citations from the December just prior. So in January, if a rider faced a fare inspector, they had about an 82% chance of getting a citation, which is very different than a year ago. So we continue to see, I think, very favorable public support of this. And again, the message is very simple: pay your fare. I also wanted to report on one of the high-profile incidents you saw last week, which was when a Trimet bus struck a pedestrian in Tiger near the intersection of Pacific Highway and Walnut Street. That happened last Thursday night. The incident, you should know, did not occur at a crosswalk. It was, my information, about 100 feet from the crosswalk. Witnesses also said the person who was hit was wearing dark clothing, and it was raining, so it was a difficult and dark environment. After police investigated the collision, they determined the bus operator did not have enough time to stop in that situation, so no citation was issued. The pedestrian was transported to HSU. At last check, she remains in serious condition, and obviously our thoughts and our prayers are with her as she continues recovery. You should know that our internal review of the incident continues. We do go through these things very thoroughly to see if there's anything that we can learn from it in terms of further prevention accidents, and so that is continuing. But again, I did want to note, according to the Tiger Police, our operator did not act negligently in this situation. I also wanted to update you on the ATU ERB decision. And as you know, last week the Employment Relations Board issued a compliance order that precludes Trimet from making any wage proposal in the upcoming interest arbitration with the ATU. I think this is bad news. We understand the decision. The agency's long-term financial stability is in the interest of our employees as well as our riders. So as a result of this decision, even if we win the arbitration, which is now scheduled for mid-May, Trimet must continue to pay 3 to 5% depending upon the CPI, and what frankly may be the highest wage and benefit package of any transit agency in the country, particularly when you consider retiree benefits. So we are continuing to review this ERB ruling and evaluate our next steps. There is the possibility of appeal. There's the possibility of moving ahead to the arbitration and completing this series of contract steps. And there's always the possibility of a settlement, which we always think is the best outcome if we are able to have those kinds of conversations with the ATU. I also wanted to update you a bit on our budget open houses, and particularly wanted to thank Board Members Schweitzer and Board Members Clark for attending some of those. We did have about 425 people attend our 5 different open house forums and our community forum. That included our community forum out at Burco in East Multnomah County. And I would say that we heard a lot from people about both the fare proposals and some of the service proposals. There's a few of the service proposals that I think are pretty controversial. We're also gathering comments online. We've got about 1,700 so far. We've received about 105 phone calls. And as I've noted before, these comments are critically important to us in terms of how we refine these proposals. And in every situation that I've worked with, we have gone through these, even despite the difficult budget situations. The proposals that come before the board, actually as part of the budget, are usually result in very different than the proposals that we start with and are heavily influenced by public comment. So I think it's really important, again, for people to continue to share their views with us. I'm sure we'll hear some of that today, but again, many other forums for people to share their thoughts and their concerns with us. I did also want to note that yesterday we turned on, finally, the solar panel structure at the NACS turnaround at PSU. It's actually one of the interesting things about it. You can actually go online and see in real time the generation of electricity and how many trees we save and those sorts of things, how many barrels of oil equivalent. The 253 solar panels will generate more than 64,000 kilowatt hours and shave about $4,800 off our power bill each year. Mostly it served as a eye-catching entryway, gateway, if you will, for the south end of downtown. You should know our overall contribution to the project was about $4,900. So we'll be recouping our investment in just a day over a year. So the project did use funds from the Green Line as well as a host of incentives and tax credits that helped pay for it. And so we've had a lot of partners in cooperation in getting that project up and running. The solar panels were manufactured by Solar World in Hillsboro and installed by RAC Solar. So they're both local firms, hopefully helping our local economy as well. I also wanted to note about a jobs event which is scheduled for tomorrow. I've been invited to attend, and I think many of the board members hopefully have as well. On the Portland-Milwaukee project, Congressman Blumenauer Schrader, along with Mayor Adams, will be on hand to join John Bolus with the building trades as that organization thanks the project and celebrates the nearly 14,000 direct and indirect jobs that the project is bringing to our region. As I like to say, jobs when our region needs them the most. And speaking of PMLRT, or Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Project, I've asked Dan Blocker, my Executive Director of Capital Projects, to give you some quick updates on the projects, as well as invite some special guests to offer a few comments to you.
Good morning, Board President Warner and members of the Trimet Board. It's my pleasure to be here today to introduce you to several people who are working on the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Project. I've been here before you on numerous occasions speaking about the many benefits of this project, both as leverage of our very limited capital funds and our long-term operational efficiencies and growth capacity. What I'd like to talk about today is something a little more near-term, and that is the impact of this project on the local economy. This project will definitely provide a much-needed boost to the jobs and the economy in our region. Right now, the construction trades are seeing levels of unemployment in the 40% range, which, when we hear about employment rates nationwide, we have to understand some industries are hit quite a bit harder than others, and construction is certainly in a bad way right now. And these jobs are critical to many of the everyday people who call the Portland region home, and we'd like to be able to help them stay here. So some of the numbers that Portland-Milwaukee is generating in these economic jobs are really quite impressive, and we're just getting started. Already the project has created more than 750 professional and technical jobs and more than 300 construction jobs. And we've only spent about 11% of our design and construction budget, and frankly most of that is on design. Just to give you some perspective of how many people participate, we have over 170 individual firms working or having completed their work on the design and the construction so far. And of them, 65 of those are DBE firms. When this project is completed in 2015, it is our expectation that it will have generated 14,500 jobs, both direct on the job, indirect in the form of suppliers around the country who provide the materials, and then finally in induced jobs, which come from the local spending of that income. So that's a really good thing. We're tracking it, and we just went live on our website with a page where we're going to update monthly with our actual counts of the jobs and the workers who are on the job. Today I have with me representatives from two companies who've been able to hire back workers as a result of the Port of Milwaukee project. First, I'd like to introduce Valerie Solosanzo. Valerie is the owner of Coat Flagging, a Southeast Portland-based company, and they're currently working on the west segment here in downtown on Lincoln Street.
Good morning. This is my first time, so I shouldn't have breakfast while I came here. Chick-fil-A Trades is actually the owner of Coat Flagging. That's what everybody knows us under. We started the company on the Transit Mall under Stacy Whitback. We were a little company that started as Chick-fil-A Trades Construction. Then Coat Flagging started in October of '06. In that venture of flagging, I actually brought on, I think, 25 employees, and today we're about 35 full-time employees across the board. Our numbers are 19%, 43% of our company is, excuse me, let me back up here. See, breakfast got me again. 43% of our company is female, and then 45% of the company overall is minority. And we've worked on Portland Streetcar, Trimet Station, the station improvements, the rail improvements, the downtown project, as I mentioned. We like the big projects because it kind of keeps our company even. There's a lot of peaks and valleys in flagging, and the rail projects seem to let us stay even. We don't have the big valleys like we normally would have if we didn't have the big trout projects to keep us feeding our employees. We get off a project and we have to lay our guys off for a month or two until the next project kicks in, and then everybody's back happy, making payroll and feeding their families like they're supposed to. So for us, it's really important that these projects go through, because that's what keeps us going as a small company. Any questions? Great.
Thanks very much, Bill. Really appreciate it. Also with me today is Al Rasband. Al is the Vice President of Malcolm Drilling. They're the firm that's out there working in the river and on the harbor structure, installing those deep drilled casings that are going to provide the future foundation. And while Al's coming up, I'll happily report that on the west side tower, we are today pouring the 6th and final shaft of that side of the tower. And that's really key, because now that tees up the rest of the construction work to complete the tower and begin building the segments. Happy day for us. Al, welcome.
Applause maybe. I'd like to thank everybody for allowing me to come and do this. When I was asked to come down here, if I would be interested in talking in front of you about the importance of our relationship with Trimet, I was actually very excited about that. Malcolm Drilling is, we're starting in 2012. It's our 50th anniversary in the construction industry. And so we're quite proud of that, and we're quite proud that during that anniversary to be working on a Trimet project again. I got thinking back, as you tend to do that, and realized that I've actually been working with Trimet over the years, actually in excess of 20 years. And it's been a great relationship. They're a unique organization that has very high quality people, and when you work on their projects, it's like you're working together to complete the project instead of necessarily for somebody. So we appreciate that opportunity. This project that's current, that we're working on right now, is a major project for us. It's significant. It's very difficult work. It has its challenges, but we're progressing quite well. We're besides the big bridge with Kiewit, we're also working on the west side as well, and we're actually looking forward to be working on the east side as probably this summer and into the fall. We've been able to rehire and employ probably somewhere around 25 to 30, depending on different phases of work. We brought back a third of those were people that have worked for us that were out of work and now back to work for us. So we're very excited about that. Not only just our employees, but the concrete suppliers that supply concrete to us, all the people that are affected, and be able to obviously feed their families and do those things that we all take for granted. So that's worked out very well. We're a union contractor, so we're signatory with operators, laborers, and pile bucks, which is also part of the carpenters. So we have all those regiments involved in our crews. Our crews are composite crews, and so they work very well together. They have some very talented people here in Oregon that we've worked with over the years, and it's always good to come down to find skilled workers that can help us perform our work and not necessarily need a tremendous amount of training. The work ethic is fantastic, and we really appreciate that. Like I said, we'll be working into the fall on the east side, so we look forward to seeing this project go on. I know that from my perspective, looking at Trimet, we do work throughout the United States, and Trimet's always been a very advanced thinking organization. When you realize a lot of the transit projects we worked on are building things that were required approximately 15 years ago, where you guys tend to build things as they're needed, and you can see by your ridership and so on and so forth, it now becomes just a natural part to ride the trains and the buses and all the different things that Trimet provides. So I give my heartfelt appreciation for that, and it's great for you guys to be working for that kind of an organization. So that's all I have for you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Dr. Bell?
Yes, no question before you move. Commend you for what you're doing in terms of your drilling, but I was very interested to hear something about your numbers. What are you doing in terms of diversity, DBEs, and what your local workforce looks like?
We have both. We have minorities that work for us. We have. It's actually quite a. I don't have numbers for you. I know that we have many of each. We have throughout the Puget Sound region up north. We have a wide range. We have basically a company policy that requires us to employ anybody that would like to work for us, and we take that very, very serious. But I don't have specific numbers.
I would respectfully request that you could support with numbers, and I'm more particularly interested in what's happening locally, not in Puget Sound, and not spending any money up there right now.
Sure. And we do track those numbers, and we'll get them for you.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
Now, in a slightly different context, our next guest is Nancy Lennon from OMSI. Nancy's here to talk about an exciting cooperative educational opportunity that they're doing in regards to the bridge.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm pleased to be here and represent OMSI. OMSI strives to be in places, not only fun and educational, but relevant. We don't want to present science in a vacuum. We want people to see how science is at work all around them. So, about a year and a half ago, OMSI staff approached Trimet with the idea of using the construction of the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Bridge to do just that. Right outside OMSI's large windows spanning the river that's our front yard, the bridge has presented the perfect opportunity to engage the public in learning about engineering and the environment. How do you build a huge bridge within budget with the least environmental impact? How do engineers decide what kind of bridge will work? And then how do they build it? We wanted to be prepared to engage OMSI visitors around these kinds of questions. And in order to do that well, we needed Trimet's help. During the past year, bridge project engineers, architects, and contractors have met with OMSI educators and exhibit developers to help create, design, and install 3 interactive displays that help OMSI visitors think about and understand the science behind the creation of the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Bridge. In one display, you learn about all the inhabitants of the Willamette ecosystem, from crayfish to Ross Island barges. In another, you learn what engineering choices were made to reduce the impact on migrating salmon, what makes a cable bridge stable and sturdy, and why a bridge for everything but cars is beneficial to our city's environment. And finally, museum visitors have the opportunity to move and zoom a camera that sits on top of OMSI's building in order to see the bridge construction process up close, as well as other parts of the Willamette ecosystem. I'm here today to thank Trimet for its tremendous partnership in helping create this unique educational experience for our community. Trimet helped by providing technical expertise and by inviting the private sector to help sponsor it, including our newest partner, Oregon State University. I invite all of you to attend the grand opening of these exhibits next Wednesday, February 29th, so you can see for yourself how this partnership is serving OMSI and inspiring the next generation of bridge builders. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Board President, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President, that concludes my report.
Board, any other questions of General Manager?
Thank you, Bruce. Neil, how are we going to share for those board members who are not able to attend some or all of the public meetings and view the comments that are provided online? How can we share that information so that the share can be informed?
Absolutely, and we will provide you both a summary of the comments as well as the verbatim comments that we've received, and that will be in your hands as you progress through the decision-making process. What I hope to do actually at your briefing on, I believe it's March 14th, is actually go through what we have learned from our comments so far and how we intend to respond, particularly on the service side related to any of those comments. We're actually responding to those comments, and for example, one of the key areas of concern has been some changes that were originally proposed for line 17. Service planning is working with that, with those comments right now, and we'll have a response that we'll actually be putting out to the public for additional review that tries to respond to the comments. And we'll put that out. I believe the target date is March 7th, and we'll obviously provide that to the board at the time as well. But just to note that this is an iterative process, and you will have the complete information of the public comments, both the written comments as well as those summary verbal comments that we've gotten at various open houses.
So, as all of us know that have participated in the board, Trimet's a rather dynamic organization. The public's engagement in Trimet's extraordinarily dynamic too. The Beaverton public gathering, I thought was extremely engaged. The folks who attended really appreciate what they receive from Trimet, are very analytical in saying what they don't like and what they do like. They actually think they own Trimet, which is a very good place to be. So as we can, my interest is how do we provide that context? Because simply like an email has no tone. Sometimes the comments I heard on that Saturday in Beaverton had a lot of tone. Some of it was very positive tone. Some of it was quite frankly made me think, and some might say it was critical. So to whatever degree we can provide not just the filtration, I know you're going to provide the verbatim, but that tone is something that I think comes from us being at the public hearings, trying to get to as many public meetings as possible. It's valuable, it takes a lot of time, but it's going to help us make a great decision for today. But as I said in our last board meeting, the community will really decide the future of Trimet. We're going to decide next year's budget, but it's really the community that's going to decide the future. So, help us understand the tone of the community.
Absolutely. The general format of our response that will be to you and actually to all of our stakeholders will be, we heard, this is how we responded. So we'll be trying to summarize it just that way, as well as providing the verbatim comments, because there is a lot of richness of attitude in it as well.
Director Clark, I think we need to train journalists to take a look at the drafts of the minutes from that meeting and see what I'm serious about that, actually, to see if you could help in terms of getting some of that, those nuances into that. Maybe you can work with staff since you were there. That would be very helpful.
And I just might note again that in the middle of March, we'll have a series of public hearings around the region, and that will be, again, the revised service proposal after taking this first round of input, responding to it best we can, and then going out to actually hear that next round of comments. And so you might, just to augment the notion that this is a very dynamic process, recall that this will be at least 3 rounds of public comment as we started with a very big picture in October and December, responding to that, learning what we could from that, putting out a proposal with a lot of specifics. We'll hear comments on that, we'll respond to that, we'll put out the next version, and again, narrow in on what we think we're hearing and how we can best respond to that. I would hesitate to say that the choices are tough and they're not easy, and that's how we started this whole process with that general notion. And that it would be easy if there were more money on the table. There's not, so we've got to make some changes, and people will be affected by it. And I think it's just a matter of doing a good job of explaining how and why, and making sure that we're connecting with our community at the same time.
Any other questions for the General Manager? Okay. Thank you, Neil. Appreciate that. And thank you, Dan, and all the others who were talking about the projects. It's real exciting to see that moving forward. So I know the Finance and Audit Committee met a couple weeks ago, and Director Schweitzer, maybe you could give us a report.
Happy to. We discussed a couple of topics a couple of weeks ago, the budget and the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail project. So first, the budget. The process, as you've just been hearing, has been very difficult this year and will require fare increases and service cuts, which we will be analyzing in the next few months to balance the budget. We discussed the budget process and the fact that updated information about economic growth and federal revenues will be incorporated into the budget in the spring. This could change the bottom line. For example, a higher growth rate would reduce the budget shortfall. The task force that was created has completed their job for now, and their recommendations on the budget. And the task force chair reported to the board at the last meeting in February 8th, following the Finance Committee. In terms of Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail, Trimet received some good news from the FTA. The administrator has indicated that the process of finalizing the full funding grant agreement is moving ahead as anticipated. And subsequent to the Finance Committee meeting, it was announced that the President's fiscal year 13 budget contains $100 million for the project. Receipt of these funds earlier than anticipated will reduce financing costs for the project. So those were the 2 topics that we talked about. Steve is available by phone. Thank you. Do you have any comments, Steve? Okay. Mr. President.
Thank you, Director Schweitzer, or Vice President Schweitzer. Other questions on the Finance and Audit Committee? Okay, thank you very much. So let's move on then to
Mr. President,
yes.
Dr. Bethel for a CAP report.
Yes, I'm sorry, we're getting to that.
Okay.
So we have one other report, which is the report on the Committee for Accessible Transportation, or CAT as we lovingly call it. Dr. Bethel, I believe you have an update for us from that last meeting.
Thank you, Mr. President. And yes, we have a report before you. Some of the same issues that the CAT committee continues to be of importance to them, and mostly at this point it is around the lit fare. There are still those who CAT voted to be in favor of the proposal with the one caveat that the Honored Citizens Fare must remain at the $1 across the whole board. And also there are concerns now about what will happen with the reduction of services, particularly the closing down of some lines, because of the way it will impact people, that many of them will have no options for travel on the weekends, since bus services and Lyft will come into line with services in the area. And I know that there will be someone who will be speaking later when we come to the Lyft part about that, but also I want to echo that some of the comments also from others are saying the same thing. So I'm hoping that as we go through, we will continue to look at this being very fair, very equitable for all people when we come to making those budget decisions when we come to the budget. Basically, that is about it that I want to report on CAT. We're progressing quite well with the things on their agenda. You see that they will talk about the budgets at the next meeting, and they've also had some concern about the cabs being used for Trimet. And when they're called, there's a great explanation given, I think, at the meeting, the last meeting. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll take any questions if there be any.
Thank you. Is there questions from the board? All right, thank you, Dr. Bethel. Very much appreciate your report. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. I think everybody knows that the items on the consent agenda are routine. The board has opportunity to pull those items off. Not heard any that want to be pulled off. So with that, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion approves. Thank you. Moving on then to resolutions, item number 4 on the agenda today. The first resolution is resolution number 12-02-13, which authorizes a contract with Wells Fargo Merchant Services to provide merchant services for Trimet. So maybe you could help the audience understand what those are and what the
I'll do my best, Mr. President. Again, this is a procurement contract that actually establishes bank service, merchant services that actually process the credit card transactions from our ticket vending machines. Our current incumbent provider of those services is Wells Fargo Merchant Services. We issued an RFP and received essentially 2 qualified responders, and part of this is that there are certain qualifications that limit the institutions that are capable and qualified to do this, both at sort of the state financing level, as well as a certain size that in order to process the number of transactions that Trimet has at the ticket vending machine. So essentially, 2 entities are able to provide that service, Wells Fargo and Bank of America. Again, just to reiterate, we gained about $19 million through these merchant services, these transactions, about 2.7 million transactions. So there's a lot of transactions per dollar, if you will. So as we went through this RFP, we actually learned a lot about the costs, as well as the embedded costs within the Trimet system. So the recommendation that comes to you is the bottom line of the service fees that would be provided by the vendor, as well as the cost of Trimet were we to switch from Wells Fargo to Bank of America. And even though Bank of America was a little bit lower on the actual fees, by the time one put in the transaction cost, the cost to switch, as well as the risks associated with getting everything to work when you switch vendors, the recommendation to you is at this point in time is to stick with the current incumbent, which is Wells Fargo Merchant Services. And again, this is a 3-year contract or 2-year with an option. And Beth Ham was also able to answer any questions because this was a complicated procurement to go through and to get to the bottom line of, but happy to answer any of those questions.
Thank you, Neil. Are there questions of Neil or Beth on this item? No, not tonight. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
And a second.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The motion then carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next resolution, which is Resolution 12-02-14, which is authorizing a contract with Moss Adams LLP for audit services. Mr. General Manager.
Yes, Mr. Board President, members of the board, and our thanks for the to the Finance and Audit Committee for looking at this as well, and we'll continue to review this as each engagement with the Audit Committee as we move ahead. But as you know, we are required to do audits, and we have some special requirements related to our annual audits because we have lease agreements and bond agreements and other third parties who are very interested in our financial state. We've had a series of audits over the number of years, but because of the complexity of our financial statements and the special certifications required for various elements of it, there's a limited number of firms that actually can provide those services. We did issue, at the conclusion of the last contract, the RFP for new services. Our contracts allow for up to 5 years of services for professional service engagements such as this. So we did from 2007 to 11 have Moss Adams LLP as our auditor. We actually related to the RFP request for proposals that was submitted, received 3 proposals. We've gone through the evaluation process, and based on the special needs of Trimet as well as cost and professional qualifications involved, do recommend a contract with Moss Adams for these services. Again, the contract base will be 3 years with the option to extend for 2 years. So if that full 5 years of services were engaged, the total contract amount would be $1,254,000 over that 5-year period. With that, I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions, as would Beth Hamill, our CFO.
Questions from the board? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve this resolution?
Resolution 12-02-14.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to resolution number 3, which is resolution 12-02-15, which is authorizing a modification to a contract with Archaeological Investigations Northwest Incorporated for archaeological testing and monitoring services.
Mr. Board President, this is a modification to a contract that was established earlier by a competitive request for proposal. As you are aware, our projects, in this case the Fort Milwaukee project primarily, are managed under the National Environmental Protection Act. And one provision of that is what we call Section 106, which deals with archaeological preservation and archaeological interests. And there are certain monitoring requirements that go along with meeting those requirements over the construction period. And primarily this is, again, for underground construction or excavation work, but not just that, but also deals with historical architecture. So again, under our record of decision for the project, we're required to continue this monitoring. What this would do is actually add value to the existing contract, total of $196,000 for particular services that are noted in the resolution. The largest element of this is to monitor ground disturbing activities of private utility companies, which were not included in the original work, and it is sort of a broadened explanation of the application of Section 106. But because those utilities are being moved for the purpose of accommodating the project, we're responsible for monitoring those activities as well. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or ask Mr. Walker to elaborate.
Questions from the board? Seeing none? No. Go ahead, you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on that last point. Why did we not know when we originally left, or when we left the original contract, about the need to monitor the private utility activities?
I'll let the expert respond. Thank you.
Primarily, we didn't know because this is really an interpretation that comes to us from the collaboration between FTA and State Historic Preservation Office, and they work together to come up with this interpretation. Frankly, in our past projects, we haven't had this level of monitoring at all. The paradigm before was that the people doing the work would sort of keep a lookout for possible historic artifacts, and if they found them, they would call in someone to look. Not everybody has done that good a job as we have on that in past projects, so the more current state of the art is to have monitors with you at all times. We had planned on that. The addition of the private utility work was something we did not have planned, and that's the main driver for the increase in this contract.
So this is a change in basically state and federal policy, or
Yes.
maybe not policy, but at least procedure?
Interpretation. And because it's part of the NEPA Act, we must comply. I would say that fortunately our budget for this work was set high enough to accommodate this latest change. We thought we had a win with the first one. It turns out not so because of this additional work, but we're still within budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, and it's been seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, resolution number 3 is resolution 12-02-16, authorizing a modification to the contract with Stacy and Whitbeck / Mowat Construction Company, a joint venture for the construction manager, general contractor services for the west segment of the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail project.
Mr. Board President, members of the board, and I'll ask Mr. Blocker to stay handy in case there are additional questions on
It's not moved, I noticed.
I would note that this is, again, the third modification to this CMGC contract that the board is seeing. And recall, again, the explanation of the CMGC contract allows us to bring construction expertise on board during the final design period, and then begin to establish scopes of work that are actually then priced and developed with an eye toward the competition and an eye toward the actual bottom line price, and then allows the project to begin to develop the critical path items or to construct the critical path items earlier on, while even some of the other final design work is continuing. In the past, the board has approved 2 modifications to this contract, and that sort of layer of construction. The first was really related to fabrication of structural steel for some of the bridges that will be on the west side of the river. The second was for underground utility work, particularly around Lincoln Street and in the South Waterfront area, necessary to accommodate the project. This last, or third request is for the construction of retaining walls that are around the new OHSU building, as well as parts of the harbor structure, as we call it, that brings the alignment from the upper downtown area down into the South Waterfront area. And again, this is schedule critical work, and again, our desire here is to begin to add these scopes of work. And at a certain point in time here, we'll be coming back to you with a wrap-up modification that takes in the complete contract. That will be after the full funding grant agreement is actually signed and in hand. And but this allows the project to stay on schedule in the meantime. I'd also note that this work is all authorized by letters of no prejudice and other authority from the Federal Transit Administration, and they are very aware of the work going on. And with that, Dan or I would be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Dan, Neil, in terms of, so this is our third change order with Stacy with that okay. And as I heard you say, there will be a wrap-up meal, so then we will see what the contract amount is versus what the change orders have been, and then the contingency, is this a part of, do they have a separate contingency, or this will come out of the overall?
So what we've been doing so far is to be awarding individual, what we call modifications. And we use that term instead of change order because a change implies something different. These are just layers of scope that we're building leading up to the final. We expect to bring the final to you in June after the FFGA, which will include all these previous layers. In other words, it will be a full contract. And with that authorization, we will also ask for a change order allowance for that contract.
Okay.
And we'll also be able to tell you where the total contract is in terms of budget and all those other factors. So far, so good on budget, I would say.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. The retaining wall, if I remember right, that whole area was going to be filled substantially, and that's the main reason why we put the retaining wall in, because that whole area is being...
That's right. Many people don't recall, but actually Moody Street, the intersection where Moody Street is and the light rail is actually 14 feet above current grade levels. So that's being done to accommodate some underground facilities at the OHSU facilities, as well as to move the whole plane up above floodplain levels. So, and it actually helps us begin to transition the alignment at a fixed grade up into the downtown area.
I think the other one is just for the members of the audience, a letter of no prejudice. I think everybody here knows what that means, but maybe you could explain to the
That's
audience.
authority from the federal government to allow us to have to incur costs and then to charge that against a future federal grant. So,
Other questions on this one?
Okay. If not, I will ask for a motion to approve this resolution.
second.
Great. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Moving on to the last, I guess it's a series of resolutions. Ms. Durand, we can adopt with one motion, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So this is Resolution 12-02-17, Resolution 12-02-18, Resolution 12-02-19, and 12-02-20. And excuse me, there's 5 of them, I guess, isn't there? And 12-02-21, authorizing Trimet to acquire or purchase or by exercise of the power of eminent domain certain real property necessary to the construction of the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Project. Mr. General Manager?
Yeah, Mr. Board President, members of the board. First of all, recall that in the past, the board has adopted a resolution that authorized the acquisition of all the property necessary for the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail Project. Each of these parcels were included in that resolution, previous action by the board. What we have in front of us are 5 parcels that are schedule critical for us in terms of moving this along. Each of the parcels has gone through an appraisal process. That appraisal has been reviewed by Trimet. It's also been reviewed by the Federal Transit Administration. For each of the parcels, we've also been able to make an offer to the owner. In some cases, the owner has not responded. In other cases, we've not been able to come to agreement. We can talk about any specifics that you would like on either one of those. But at this point in time, we would recommend moving these projects into the condemnation process. I would note that 99.9% of the time, we do end up with a negotiated price at the end of the day, but sometimes a condemnation process is necessary to make sure that that occurs within a timeline that meets the project's requirements. I'd also just would like to note that as we go through these processes, this is a process of mutual discovery, so to some extent our appraisals are based on some knowledge that we have and our appraisals have and the studies that the appraisers have done. As we go through these processes, we often learn other facts from the property owners, and those can be incorporated into the appraisals through the course of this process. I might also note that the one advantage for property owners of this process is that once we deposit funds in the court, they actually are available for the property owners to draw on to move and make choices related to their investments during the process of coming to resolution of it. So certainly be happy to answer any questions about the specific property, and I'll conclude my introduction and I will respond to comments.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Any general comments or property-specific comments or questions?
Without getting into the specifics of confidential dealings, how, given that one property in specific, however, has a building acquisition that was not anticipated, it has required an additional expenditure or may require an additional expenditure than that was budgeted. If we take these 5 together as a cumulative, we may be over budget by some $300,000 or so. My question is, I'm sure you folks do this, but could we have from time to time quarterly an update on how we're standing as far as matters related to property acquisition, either by purchase, condemnation, or other means, so that we can see what the context is. We're enjoying the benefit of the economy, which is an oxymoron. No one is right. That's probably not even concerned. But I'm just curious, in the cumulative, how are we doing as far as total estimated costs of property acquisition or condemnation?
We'd be happy to provide that and on a regular basis. So more than happy to do that. And I would note that these, when you build an acquisition budget, one always builds a certain level of contingency into it as well, as you well know. And what the situation here is that as one gets down into final design, sometimes the best made assumptions, best engineering assumptions don't play themselves out. So then perhaps...
And my point is, 1 by 1 or 5 by 5, we don't see the total context. You do, and since we're somewhat fiduciary responsible, it's great to have that knowledge.
Happy to do that.
Great comment, great request. Other comments? Okay, with that, is there a motion to approve the resolutions?
And second.
Okay, we have a motion that's been seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. All right. Now we're going to get down to the item where I think the majority of folks in the audience are interested in providing input to the board about. This is the ordinance that deals with the lit fare increases. We're going to move into that ordinance before us. I want you to know that this board, at its January meeting, held the first reading of this ordinance for the lit fare increase, and I'm going to turn over to the Trimet General Counsel, Janet Duran, for the second reading of this.
This is ordinance number 321, an ordinance of the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, Trimet, adopting lit fare increases, repealing lit half-month pass fare.
A little louder.
Sorry. And amending Trimet Code Chapter 19.
Great. Thank you very much. For those in the audience, I want to make clear that even though Director Stovall and myself are new, we spent a lot of time going over the record. I listened to 2.5 hours of the January meeting, so I understand the issues, and also I've had an opportunity, I think Travis has also, to review the written comments that were provided. And I do want to acknowledge the work of the board and what you've done in terms of due diligence and really considering this proposal, because I know it was before you earlier. You delayed action on it to allow additional input. I think that was a really good suggestion based on what I've seen, and the proposal looks better right now. What I want to do is we're going to open the floor for public comment on this ordinance. What I have is 13 people who've signed up who want to testify on this at the moment. As I call your name, please come up and present your testimony. I'm going to call you 2 at a time, so you can just come right up. I will keep a strict 3-minute time limit for your testimony. And I would ask, for this board's sake, and for all of those who want to testify, to only testify if you really have something new to present. As I said, we were all here, the majority of folks were here listening to this in person at the last meeting, and Travis and myself have had an opportunity to review the information. If you would like to submit further comments that you were not able to make in your allotted time, please see Kelly Runyon right there. Raise your hand. I think everybody knows who you are. After this meeting, and submit them in writing to the board. So with that instructions, first to testify, I've got Patricia Kepler and Adam Chris. Welcome.
Thank you. I testified last month about my opposition to the fare increase as both a Lyft user, someone who uses both Lyft and fixed route, but also as a counselor at Independent Living Resources. So many of my consumers are dependent on the fix or on the Lyft and have very limited incomes. You've heard from many of them over the last few months, so I don't need to recap theirs. What I want to talk to you a little bit about today is one of the things I shared with you last month was the hazard my dog faces when I do choose to use the Max. and that my decision to not take the MAX in the winter months due to the high risk. I was a little surprised after that testimony to get an email from your safety manager, Mr. Supporta. He didn't appear to have known that last February my dog was injured in spite of a complaint that I made in a conversation with Mr. Morgan. I was further surprised last night to get a follow-up email. He had asked me to send him the date, the time, and specifics, and I did that. Last night I received a follow-up email from him assuring me that this problem was fixed and there were things in place. The issue remains, however, the fixes that you have are the same fixes that have been there since 2002. The MAX works fine. This doesn't cause these shockings in warm summer months. But cold weather, wet weather, and those capacitors breaking down is what causes the problem. And the capacitors you have in place apparently don't like the cold weather either, because they tend to break down when we have cold fronts. And that's when my dog has been injured, and when the other dogs I know of have been injured. Now, that might be good enough for Southern California or Arizona, where we don't have several months of cold, wet weather, but it's certainly not good enough for Oregon. And I'm hoping, as you guys are looking at forcing people onto fixed route and MAX, especially the increase of MAX lines, that you seriously are looking at this issue and doing something to really correct it, because what you have in place now is not a fix. Thank you.
Go ahead, please. Adam?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
I did want to point out, I came to you last month as well, and I shared, a scenario of what, could and probably will happen by putting this, lift increase into effect. I also wanted to, speaking on behalf of people I'm a member of a group called TICBO. It's a group out of the Jewish Family and Child Services. And a lot of the members of that organization, especially one particular person, he takes a lift to his work at Safeway. He works there 1 day a week, 4 hours a day. If this lift increase goes into effect, he probably will have a much harder time getting to work. And this is the only time he's really able to, get out of the house. And I think that needs to be, a consideration needs to be made to think about how this will adversely affect people with disabilities. I think that, by using this lift fare as a starting point to, fix the budget shortfalls is wrong. I think that there are other means that can be looked at. I think there's other options that can be looked at. I have not of yet heard of any consideration of other options, and I know that people have brought these options to you, and also to CAT, which has not really considered them either. I think you should really consider the testimony you just heard from Patricia about the safety. I think that safety is also a concern that needs to be a consideration when you are going to put people with disabilities back onto fixed routes off of lift. One of the things you talked about, in this very meeting is that, in the public testimonies on the budget, you heard that the community is really speaking out and using different tones. I request that you really listen to the tone of what people are saying and really consider them, and stop trying to dictate your own personal or own again.
Thank you very much, Adam. I appreciate your testimony this morning. All right. The next two are Jonathan Simeone and Jonathan Hunt.
Sorry about that. Thanks for having me today. That's it.
We'll reset that, okay? Go ahead, Jonathan.
So I've been traveling independently for almost 20 years. I've lived in several major metropolitan areas from Boston to the Bay Area. I've been to about 36 states. I've traveled on all the major public transportation systems in the country except the one in Chicago. And throughout my travels, I've made the personal decision not to sign up for the lift, to be honest. I prefer the advantages of being able to take transit whenever I want. And I come today, frankly, because I support Trimet's desire to raise the cost of lift rides so that they are equivalent to what it costs to ride a bus. I personally do not consider making or asking people to contribute what they would contribute if they took the bus to be forcing people onto the bus. But if the cost is the same, it can hardly be said you're forcing people to choose one option over the other if they both cost the same. And I also think it's important to recognize in a system that is hemorrhaging money that sacrifices need to be made by all of us, and maybe especially those of us who really have no other option except public transportation of one sort or another. So I think it's quite reasonable to ask people to contribute what it would cost me to take the bus if someone else chooses to take the lift. Thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I'd like to thank RideWise and the travel training program for helping me get used to using Trimet services when I moved to Portland a few months ago.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hunt.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board.
Good morning.
My name is Jonathan Hunt. I'm the president of Amalgamated Transit, Local 757. I'm joined today by Jonathan Ostar of Opal and Michael Levine of Portland Disabilities and Advocates. Opal and PDA and Amalgamated Transit Union jointly call on the Trimet Board of Directors to act responsibly and to act now and to bring elderly and disabled transportation services in-house. The move will not only result in improved services, but will save transit agents, the taxpayers, over $7 million. This move will also keep the money in the local communities rather than seeing it going to multinational companies abroad. Trimet and the union agreed to do an audit to determine if it was cost-effective for Trimet to operate the lift services themselves rather than to contract with private companies. The audit was completed in 2008 and was based on Trimet's 2004 budget. The audit concluded that Trimet brought the services in-house with a status quo contracting wages and benefits. They would save taxpayers over $3.6 million. Those savings were based on 2004 budget. By simply adjusting the savings, increasing by the amount Trimet has increased their revenue contracts with private for-profit contractors, that savings today to taxpayers would easily exceed $7 million. Should anyone disagree with those numbers, just plug in the budget numbers from 2005 through 2011. We find it hard to believe that Trimet continually talks about fare increases and the 2013 projected budget shortfalls and ignores the immediate savings of more than $7 million it could achieve by bringing paratransit services in-house. Rather, the current general manager of Trimet wants to argue about the scope of the audit, which he had no part of. The Trimet general manager and his leadership staff in 2008 had to agree and sign off on the perimeters of the audit. In fact, Trimet's CFO personally participated in directing and approving the audit procedures. Remember, these are Trimet numbers. Trimet provided the information which the audit was conducted. No matter how badly Trimet management would like this to go away, the numbers, their numbers, don't lie. I provided each of you with a copy of the 2008 LIFT audit prepared by Luca & Associates Certified Public Accountants. If you'd please turn to page 3 of the audit and look at the summary analysis. The audit found that Trimet was performing paratransit operations in-house in 2004 using the same collective bargaining agreement, wages, benefits, and working conditions of the private contractor, not Trimet wages and benefits. Trimet could perform the services for $3.6 million less than they would pay private contractors in 2004. I'll finish it up briefly. No one is suggesting that paratransit be brought in-house and performed by current Trimet employees, or to be paid by Trimet employees' wages and benefits. Any changes to the wages, benefits are subject to the collective bargaining agreement, just like it's done now with the private for-profit contractors that the union currently negotiates with. We believe that Trimet management is misleading taxpayers into believing that it would be additional cost to bring paratransit in-house. Bringing paratransit operations in-house today at the current rate of pay, benefits, and working conditions, saving the taxpayers over $7 million. Doing this now will lower Trimet's projected 2013 budget shortfalls in half. Trimet will not have to increase paratransit fares for the most vulnerable citizens. There would be more profit to be made there would be no more profit to be made by the multinational company to suck out of our communities and send overseas. And the services provided would be more efficient and cost effective. It is time to stop the lip service. I'm wrapping up. Provided a more efficient, cost-effective service to our citizens who rely on public transportation every day. This is a necessity that they need every single day. And we've seen time and time again, when we push people onto mass transit that have disabilities, this is going to create more time on it. The general manager spoke recently about some tragedies that took place, but failed to mention that we just had one of our own operators die on the job. And we're not taking a look at how our schedules are built, and by moving more people into off of lift onto fixed route is going to take a system that is already overburdened and not allowing the people to have decent restroom breaks and meal breaks, and is going to continue to burden the system and affect the most vulnerable citizens out there. Thank you for your time, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you. I think that I want you to know that your testimony last month caught my attention in terms of the savings. And it is clear to me, at least in my reading, that there's a disagreement in terms of the numbers. I think this is something that I would like to see, and Greg, I don't know whether you want to jump in on this too, but I believe that this is something we do need to take another look at. I think we need to update these numbers, Neil, and I want to understand that because we're going to be going into the budget discussion. I think this is really a budget dialogue discussion rather than lift a fee issue right now. And I think we need to understand the numbers and see what is the opinion, and make sure if there's different opinions, we understand what those are. Because I think if there is those kind of savings to be had, we ought to be looking at that. If not, I want to understand why not, and we'll make the decisions accordingly. So thank you very much for your testimony. Is there other comments or questions? Craig, you ready?
I agree with your comments. Just one correction I would make is that you keep referring to this as an audit. It's not an audit. Even on the cover page here, it says lift operator program analysis. And unfortunately, you're talking to a finance guy. So audit has a very specific meaning, and it's done according to very specific standards, and therefore carries a lot of weight. An audit looks at what has been done, looks how expenses have been accounted for, how they've been booked. It cannot, by definition, be forward-looking. That's why this is an analysis, and I'm sure the Rocco Associates would make that correction too. So it might be a net, but it's finance people, it's important. So.
And I appreciate both your comments today, and I think this is a great opportunity to go right back to that certified independent accountant auditor that looked at this before and plug in those numbers that we already have and come up with where we're at. And again, maybe it needs a more in-depth process. But the savings has been there before, the costs have only increased, and we need to figure out why we need to keep paying for-profit contractors when we have the ability to do this in-house. And unfortunately, Mr. Chair, I have to disagree in the aspect of this fare increase is huge, and this cost savings, I would ask that this board not move forward on this increase until this valuable savings is looked at so we can defer these costs to the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And so, Neil, I'm not looking at something in a week or a day. I mean,
we have, and I apologize that you've come in. We actually have submitted to the board and passed the review of the numbers, and we actually estimate that the cost swings the other way, $7 to $14 million. I would also note that if these Lyft employees became Trimet employees, they would be subject to the same strike prohibitive status as the rest of the Trimet workforce, and as we know, that has not exactly produced a timely contract resolution, that process. So what I would note is that there are a lot of perhaps, and we can make it very clear what the difference of opinion and difference of assumptions about that is. Yeah. But I would note that many of the board members have seen that response, and we will be happy to summarize it in another and update the numbers according to your request.
Great, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I must add, and I want to make sure it's on the record correctly, is the general manager suggesting that binding arbitration is not the most reasonable way, and he's continually to taunt and do these anti-union issues and requesting that this group does a strike. Last month when I spoke, part of the issue I stated was, you're right, we are in the middle. We have had a strike vote and is ready to go out anytime. And the general manager, I believe is what I just heard, I just want to make sure I got it correct, that he's saying he would rather have our system shut down to the most vulnerable than figuring out a way that we can bring them in-house. Clearly there's a difference of opinion on the numbers. It sounds like our numbers people should take a look at it, go back to the audit firm, and have them do analysis. And let's get this figured out once and for all. Is Mr. McFarland's numbers wrong, or is our numbers wrong? Because we use their numbers and we agree to their process.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. And I didn't hear that from the general manager. But what you're hearing here is this board would like to have, at least a couple of members here would like to have some more detailed information to understand the numbers. And I thank you for bringing it to our attention.
I appreciate it. In final words, I have always been willing to sit down and to finish and negotiate this contract. And the binding arbitration works. The problem is Trimet keeps losing and they don't like the decision.
Thank you very much.
If they don't break the law, then they won't have to worry about it.
Thank you
very much.
We're going to move on. All right. All right, so the next two are Jonathan Oster and Michael Levine.
Good morning. Trimet Board, Board President Warner, General Manager McFarland. My name is Jonathan Oster. I'm the Director of Opal Environmental Justice Oregon. We primarily organize transit riders, bus riders, to wield more collective voice in transportation decision making. I want to make clear, Opal stands in solidarity with both the drivers and with the disabled community in terms of access to transportation. We haven't taken an official position on either the motion before you, the resolution before you now, or on the analysis that you heard from Mr. Hunt from ATU. We haven't had a chance to look at the numbers yet. I want to just make that clear for the record. However, we do stand in solidarity with them. I think the common thread here, the common theme that you heard and you're going to hear from continued testimony is about transparency, it's about information disclosure, and it's about meaningful participation. And that's really the overarching issues when it comes to the budget. We can talk about the numbers, we can have a disagreement about the values, but what we can't do is we can't short shrift the information disclosure and the opportunities to participate from the people who depend on transportation the most. And if the riders are not getting the information clearly and fully, they can't meaningfully participate. They're precluded from doing so. And you heard some dispute about an analysis that was done several years ago. There's perhaps some dispute about the numbers. I think the justification for both the lift fare increase that's before you today and for the overarching budget proposal that staff has brought to you and that you're going to be considering over the next few months is suspect because of the very information that is being disseminated by the agency. It's narrow, it's outdated, and it's restricted, and it precludes riders from engaging meaningfully in a full discussion of the issues, so that we can't provide you with the feedback that's critical for you to make those decisions reasonably. Case in point, one of the three components of what's being proposed as a reason for the current budget shortfall is declining payroll tax revenue. The projections that's based off were done in October. Things have changed pretty significantly since then in terms of the growth rate that's being used. These projections that show a $3.2 million shortfall are based upon a 3.5% growth rate, which is more conservative than the last 2 years. And the last 2 years, where I should say fiscal year 11 and fiscal year 12, which we're halfway through, have shown a trend of a surplus of payroll tax revenue, meaning we've been more conservative. We've underestimated our payroll tax revenue, and we've ended up at the end of the year with a greater than projected revenue from payroll taxes. Now, if that's the case, then that raises questions about the entire shortfall and the entire proposal in the first place. And what this does is it precludes us as riders from engaging meaningfully because all we have is the little bit of information that you've offered. And I'll just finish up by making this one point. Everybody that's in the room today, these are all your best allies, right? Riders, drivers, the disabled community, low-income folks, people who depend on transit day in and day out, the young, the old. We should have the information so that we can actually work together and collaborate, as opposed to engaging in an adversarial process where we're banging heads. But it starts here. It starts with the accountability and the transparency of the information and the opportunity to engage. So I really urge you, going forward over the next 2 months, to really focus on that. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Ms. Levine. Thank you, Board President, board members. For the record, my name is Michael Levine. I am the president, president's here, chair, I promoted myself, of Portland Disability Advocates. I'm a former vice chair of Trimet's Committee on Accessible Transportation, CAT, and I've been advocating for public transportation for people with disabilities for about 13 years in the Portland area. I did not know I was going to be addressing a new board president and board member. I find it kind of disheartening that the vote today is going to have 2 members that did not hear from the disability community. We have been coming before this board since April. As Mr. Clark pointed out, you can't always tell from written testimony which you shared you have reviewed, but also by the tone and actually looking at and seeing the faces of people with disabilities, that if you approve this fare increase today, you are going to be pricing off of lift service. You heard from a gentleman today that felt that it was fair to have the same fares across the board. I only wish that people with disabilities could afford it, then we wouldn't be having this discussion. There are people with disabilities that have $150 a month discretionary income, if you want to call it that. They need to pay for their fares to use Trimet out of the $150, which also, by the way, includes having to buy toothpaste, shaving cream, etc. It's different. The highest ridership that you have is AM, PM. Who are these folks? These are people going to work that have jobs. The people that use the lift service, for the most part, are not employed. And some that are meaningless in a way, paid by piecemeal jobs. It's different. You cannot group us all. And the other thing, we are the largest minority anywhere, and yet we are discriminated against the most by Trimet. Is it because we're the largest? I don't get it. And I'm not sure if the buzzer is going to go off, but I need to finish this one other statement. When you price people with disabilities off of paratransit service and you put them onto a discriminatory fixed route system that does not meet its obligations of the ADA, which by the way also puts your funds in jeopardy. If you will take the time to read the Federal Register, it's very clear that you must be in compliance with the ADA in order to receive federal funding, which Trimet is not, and I'm willing to prove it to any board member that wants to take the time. And I challenge you, Board President, to come out with me and let me show you not only the non-compliance, but show you the guidelines that tell you the non-compliance and what Trimet needs to be doing. This is a broken system when it comes to people with disabilities. It needs to be fixed, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we have the management to do so. And I'll end with, do you have any answers to the letter dated February 7th that I presented and asked for answers?
Well, I don't have those answers, Mr. Levine.
Well, I don't have them either.
So, were we planning on responding, Neil?
We were not. The issues are raised.
I'm serious. So
what have been responded to Mr. Levine many times in many volumes of correspondence. There is not an answer that we can provide Mr. Levine that will be satisfactory. So at this point, there was not any new questions or answers.
Well,
we haven't previously responded.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Levine, I may take you up on your offer.
Thank you. I truly hope that you will. I started many years ago trying to be friends and work with everybody. In fact, I was a consultant to Trimet for 6 months as well. But my attitude is pretty negative at this point, and it's what I've had to deal with for the last 13 years. And I'm pleased that you would like to take it up, and I'm hoping we can see a new partnership.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you. All right, the next two are Ron Thompson and Chris Walker. Go ahead, please.
I would like to thank the board for allowing me to come forward. I have a statement, to submit that will bring up the issues, but I would prefer to come to you basically making some testimony of experience as a vet driving vets, which is the Ride Connection portion agency, which was a grant through Trimet. And last month we had an individual that said that basically he had volunteered, but he had not gotten called to do any rides. And we have done roughly 376 in the first half year and 389 hours of service. We have 13 active drivers in Washington County and Multnomah County. And I am an active driver, a vet, but I prefer to tell you the type of people that we're driving. A couple of testimonies on that. And we're doing the job, and we're going to have more vets coming home soon. We need drivers, volunteer drivers, and a vet will drive for another vet. We need to get the message out and the service, and we're working on that. It's a new program, 1.5 year old, but this is the type of people we're having. Ms. Ruth Martinez, she basically lives in Cornelius. Her husband was a Korean vet. He's passed away. She's a widow. She's 87 years old. She needs transportation for her annual physical, which is not a lot, but she's been active in the community. She has 8 children that went through Forest Grove High School. we provided the service. She also has a handicap or medically son that's 50 years old that she's taking care of, and they're living in their home. And this service provides and meets them where we would have two individuals that would be in some type of institutional nursing home or some other care. It's the cheapest way of doing this service. It's an important program, and we're working to get it done in our community. Another vet is can you give me one more minute on the thing?
Please, go ahead.
Okay. Another vet, he's a Vietnam vet. Oh, I'm sorry. Which is the vet era that I was served in also. I picked him up, and there's a note that he has insecurity. So when you go pick him up, he's going to check every door and window in his house before he goes. So a normal cab ride or normal anything else, they would not provide the service for him. But I understand what he's faced with, and we will provide the service. And I think it's a very important service. Support us, advocate for us, and help us to provide the needs of our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have any opinion on the ordinance? I didn't hear any.
No, I've got in the testimony, last month there was testimony that the individual was not being utilized, and I came, and during the same time I provided 7 rides, and I'm a very busy man in volunteer work in my community in Forest Grove. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I have some concerns about the west side fixed route services as it relates to Lyft and the cutting of Sunday service to that will affect churches and places where people would go to worship, because if you raise fares and then you're cutting off people's right at the church if they live on the outskirts of the boundary or kind of that dividing line, then that has an effect. And also, there's an effect on people who want to ride the regular fixed route service that wait for buses that sometimes regular buses that don't show sometimes. Example, I was waiting for this is Monday, I was waiting for the 102-67 from Merlo that goes down Jenkins. I get off the hole in Jenkins and to go down to Forest. I can't use the 59 for 2 reasons. First of all, the sidewalks are not accessible on Walker because there is some sort of construction, and so that nobody with disabilities can get through that. And then also it's just hard to cross, so all the streets, especially at night when the bus stop, when there's a lot of traffic, but also the bus stops at nighttime. If you go out to the lines that don't get frequent service, if you go out at night and you can't see, or you're familiar with, you know where the right stop is during the day, but at night it's dark and it's hard to see, and so you can't get to where you need to go. And so I would recommend an evaluation of how you're performing bus service for fixed route for people with disabilities who desire, yes, they need to lift at night sometimes, or they use it sometimes, but it's hard to use it. To use a fixed route when you can't see the stop, or you're familiar with it during the day and the pool is dark, or there's no bench or whatever. There's no visible marking for either the passenger or the driver to be able to see. I was almost passed up on Sunday night using the 62 because of that. So, and then just real quick, I would recommend waiting on this lift service, this increase until April, and in the meantime, hearing from those people who don't come to the open houses, the regular open houses, and do like a couple town hall meetings where people with disabilities who are going to be the most impacted can share. So those are just
great. Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate it. All right. Yvonne Jordan and Aaron Joymer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Yvonne Jordan. I'm a parent of I can't even say youngster anymore. He's 38 years old. He has just moved from home. He is using the LIFT program, and I have been using the program ever since you guys started evaluating people with whether they can use LIFT or not use LIFT. He used to take Trimet back and forth in high school, back and forth to his job, one thing and another like that. But since he had a stroke in 2005, some little nuances have changed in his lifestyle, and we felt that, or I felt, that the lift was the most appropriate for him. When that one guy said that people have about $150, and he's talking about, soap and one thing and another, that also includes recreation, clothing, living. $150 to $5.30 doesn't go very far. The fare increase would kind of jack him out of line quite a bit, trying to, if he had to, do that. And he works alongside a lot of people who are living in an apartment in their own, with their own funding and one thing and another. My son lives in a group home now. He just went into one yesterday. But he was in a foster care for a brief period of time. Now it's a group home. I was out at his house the other day, and I was waiting for his bus to come home. I called finally and said, gee, did the bus show up on time? Oh no, it was a half an hour beyond the time that he was supposed to be picked up. Can you give me an idea when he's going to be here? Yeah, 3:20. He was supposed to be picked up at 12:40. And that was the end time. And so that 3 hours or so that he was on the bus, anything could happen. He could lose continence, all kinds of things. To give another little piece of the use of the services, my husband was on dialysis before he passed away, and there was times that the bus didn't show up. I only worked that part-time job at that time. I would leave my part-time job to come pick him up because the bus could not get there in the time frame to get him to dialysis on time. And if he misses dialysis, it throws the whole schedule off. But that's just I just want to give you a picture of what a family goes through. And if you have two people who are needing lift services, that's, when you see that amount, it just jacks up that much. So that's what I wanted to do, is just give you a list. And I was just kind of curious, how many of you folks have children that use the lift? A disability of some sort? And how many of you may have a husband or a wife with a disability? I'm just really kind of curious, because I kind of got the idea from a meeting that I went to that none of you have a personal experience, and that you don't have a representative on the board now that does have that issue. Is that true?
I do have in my care a person who has a disability, who lives on the fixed income that I have to supplement as well.
And he lives there at your house?
doesn't live in my house. She lives in an institution. But I have to pay for that institution.
Isn't it wonderful? Thank you, folks.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Aaron?
Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, I wanted to start out by saying you have a tough job because, you know, you are holding lives in your hands. And to tell you a little bit about myself, I have a small business working with people with various types of disabilities, with mostly computer-based talking computers for the Braille, or for the blind, low vision, that sort of thing. And I take the bus, the lift, because I am legally blind, to houses. Unlike the gentleman, I think he was blind, who doesn't really need the lift. He probably goes to the same places all the time. I might go to about 20 or 30 houses, different houses. And the reason that I do is because I started taking the fixed route, and I would have my cane with me. Of course, it looked like I brought my whole office because I had about maybe 4 or 5 briefcases. Different drivers would make comments and saying, wow, you really look like you're going somewhere. Well, I'm trying to. Well, asking the bus driver to let me off at, let's say, 39th and Hawthorne. I'm just making the street up. And even reminding the driver several times, maybe a couple of times, I don't want to overly exaggerate. And I said, driver, have we gotten there yet? Oh, I'm sorry, we're 10 blocks past. So for a person who is legally blind, who to try to get off of the bus and to try to find that address is not a piece of cake. And, you know, I think you're hearing the same thing over and over again, but sometimes we hear the same thing over and over again, we don't get it. Kind of like the lady that was sitting beside me that just spoke, is you're hearing, but I don't think you're really hearing. You know, it's unfortunate for me to take practically the whole day off of work to get here. By the time that's said and done, I got on the bus around, the lift window started at 7, and I got here about 5 minutes till 9. That's 2 hours. It's going to take me I'm here until noon. You do the math. And actually the lift is 12:30. So that's what, 5.5 hours? And then 2 more hours back? That's what most people work. Those are the hours that most people are working. They're working 8 hours a day. I practically spent the whole day here. And, you know, that's what people of just a couple seconds, please. That's what people with disabilities have to go through. Their transportation, they're living on the bus. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. All right, the next up two are Kathy Layhunt, I probably pronounced that improperly, and Terry Light, or Lake.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I also work for Independent Living Resources. I'm a social worker there. So I see the people who come into my office, and sometimes their lift ride is late, like an hour late. So we have to reschedule their appointment. But I guess, you know, I mean, you have to find money somewhere. You have a tough situation. Where are you going to find the money? But if you keep increasing fares, but decreasing the fixed route, I mean, you're not gonna. There's not gonna be anything for people to ride. I mean, you have. I ride the bus every day. I take fixed route every day to get to work. The back's always crowded. I mean, standing room only. Sometimes you're like a sardine, just like stuffed in there. Your buses break down. I live on the west side, and I mean they break down. They're late, and you know, and then I found out my bus is going to be cut some more. And, for the people that live out in my neighborhood, at least, I mean, the sidewalks aren't complete. And then there's a whole safety issue. As more people with disabilities have started using fixed route because they've been cut, you don't have enough spaces for wheelchairs, or for people who use wheelchairs, or people who use walkers, and then you have people who have to have children and they have to have their strollers, and you just don't have enough space. And how are you going to fix this if you keep cutting people's services? I mean, you have to do something, but I mean, on a typical day, we have people that, there's two people in wheelchairs, and, then somebody else gets on who needs to use that space because they have a walker. I mean, where are we going to put everybody? And yet, you keep cutting services, and I don't know what the answer to that is, but I know that if you're going to increase, then your services should, improve. But eventually, you're going to get to the point where even people on fixed route aren't going to want to use the bus because it's going to be cheaper if they have a car to drive the car. I mean, it's almost $5 for a full day. That's what are people going to do? I mean, they're putting up with people who your drivers have one heck of a job because they put up with people yelling at them, getting in their face. There's people who they're just, it's a really hard situation, and it's not easy to be on that bus. And I would wish that you would ride your own system to find out what it's like every day to take the bus.
Hi, fellow board members and executive director of Trimet. I came here today to speak about the fare raises and the changes that will be operating because I live at Dignity Village, and I was horrified that they were talking about cutting 73 on the weekends. I'm aware that might have changed, but I'm not going to address that right now. Because I came here today and I found out this is an ordinance you are passing, and I felt really outraged. I have done work with support for people with disabilities in the community when I lived in Anchorage, Alaska. And our disability law firm went after organizations who discriminate against people with disabilities, and I'm really surprised that you're pursuing such a legislation ordinance here that seems so discriminatory. I was very outraged at first, and I'm really trying to think about why we're not working on this together. Why you decide things without all the input from us. This is a late date to have comment, and this is not a thinking process. It's a process I feel like you have already thought out. You know best because you're looking at the money, and you've left out all the imagination of all these people here who really want it to work. You've left out a lot of resources. I don't know why. I'm really confused and confused about this. Because I believe in the bus. I'm a person who suffers from asthma, and I know how many more children, I don't care how wealthy they are going to suffer from asthma. I don't know if anybody's ever felt that, suffocation from asthma. But that's a direct result of air pollution. We are not separated from each other. I don't care what class, race, gender, human or non-human, we're not separated from each other. I really have to have a we consciousness going. It's just going to get worse if you don't. It's just going to get worse and worse. Because we're all afraid, we're anxious. I mean, all of us here are not standing up to the government who's cutting us. Instead, it wants to pay for war. Instead, it wants to pay for corporations that are telling us we can do things better. And it's left out a lot of resources. So I was just really chagrined and surprised at this ordinance here. Taking more for people who have the least to give. And we'll still keep giving it because we really want it to work. But you should be really, really Take note of the courage of the people who survived. Take note of the ingenuity of the people who survived. Take note of the people out of the margins. They have a lot to teach people who have it easy. People who take the bus every day don't have to think half as much. Please consider that we're all connected. Please.
Thank you, Terry. Appreciate your comments. All right, the last one I have on the list is Deborah Huggins. Is Deborah here?
She is.
Okay, great.
What do you want? Okay, I'll just hang here. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, I'm on one position. Okay, how's everybody? I would like to know who on the board takes the lift? Anybody?
No.
Anybody take the max on the board?
Yes.
Do you pay for your ticket, or does your job cover that for you?
I pay for it personally.
I usually pay for it all.
Do you take the max? Anybody take the max?
Yes.
Yes.
Has anybody done that blindfolded?
Yes.
Has anybody done that in a wheelchair?
Yes.
With a cane? These are things that most of us just do normally, and you're asking us to pay for services, more money added to us. And usually when you pay more for a product, you get more with that product, or a better quality of product. You're telling us that you want to take away a lot of the things that we have now, say going places on the weekend. It is not easy for a lot of us to get on the buses and maxes due to a lot of different various reasons. And I don't think that you guys are considering that if you make a product cost more, that you should not take away, that you should make it better for your people. And I don't see that happening with the lift, and I don't see that happening with the buses or maxes. I know a lot of us here, don't make a lot of money a month. If I had $220,000 a year, then I would be considering a heck of a lot of other ways to ride and go places that I need to go, and even take some friends with me. I know that there's got to be other ways that we could get together, but I don't think that our board is really taking us full-heartedly into consideration, because you're putting more money out for the people but not wanting to make that better. Charge your board but not put out a good product. Is that a good thing to do? Wouldn't you want a product to be better? So I think you guys should think on making the product, which is using the lift and using the max and buses a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. That's all I have signed up. Is there anybody we missed in the sign-up sheet? We do have two, so why don't you come on up? Was I getting it?
They're for public forum, not lit.
Oh, you're for public forum? We're still on the ordinance here, so should have made that clear. We're talking about testimony on the ordinance. So if there are no more, which it looks like there aren't, then we'll close the public hearing, and we will move forward on deliberations on this ordinance, which considers, again, the adoption of this ordinance. And so what I'm thinking is, why don't we have a motion to approve this, get it on the table, and get a second, and then let's have some discussion from the board members, okay? So is there a motion to approve this ordinance 321?
So moved.
All right. So discussion. comments, questions from the board? You want to start at the end?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for your testimony. Many of you who have been here several times. This is, and I've commented on this before, this is a very difficult decision to make. And I know, well, speaking for myself, have talked with certain folks. I was on the liaison with Kat for a period of time that I could do that. So again, I appreciate your comments and your testimony, and I do know that it is very difficult. And also in light of where Trimet is in terms of our financial situation, it is a very difficult decision to make, so I don't make it lightly. And hopefully the revenue picture over time will change, and maybe at some point other things can be brought forward. Thank you.
Rosser?
I have a couple of questions that I think staff can help with, if I may. We've heard a lot about the ADA issues, and part of it is, dealing with the other part of the system, not just lift, but it also sounds like there's some concerns about whether this fee increase would violate ADA, and I'm wondering if Ms. Tran could address that.
Well, Alderman Prosser, the proposed ordinance does not violate the ADA. Under the regulations, the price of the lift fare could be 2 times the fixed route.
Okay. And that's the standard for affordability, or is it just a set standard that's in there?
That's the standard that's in the regulations. So we are well below the threshold that the government allows us to set for the fare.
Okay.
Read the standard again, please.
I'm sorry?
Read the standard again, please.
I'd like to tag on to your question, Craig, about ADA and respond or get a response to Michael's letter that was sent out last. Yes, we have responded quite a bit in the past, but because there is some new faces here today, are we abiding by ADA?
The answer is yes. There are a number of inspections that occur on a regular basis. The federal government sends people here to review our compliance with the ADA, and so that's actually reviewed on a regular basis by the Federal Transit Administration. I would note that there are a lot of complications in the regulations, and there are some differences of interpretation about how some of these things need to be configured, and so there is that difference of opinion that does play out. Now, I would also say that this board really, since the late 1990s, has emphasized making its fixed route fleet accessible. Since then, we've been buying low-floor buses. We've since then added the automatic stop announcement, and all of our new buses will have that in place. So we're continuing to invest in making the system more accessible for people over time. And my hope is, well, we're certainly not perfect. We're continuing to improve. We need to continue to monitor that. But in general, we are definitely compliant with the ADA.
Okay, thank you. I heard a lot of testimony today about whether we were taking this seriously or not. And I'd like to respond to that because we are still here today because we have been taking it seriously. We've talked and had open houses and meetings and listened to many of you more than once come up and speak to us. And so it's a serious subject. We continue to have our hard issues to deal with, hard decisions to make. This is one of them. And so, Aaron, I appreciate that you said we have a hard job, because we do. This is a difficult situation that we're all in and have been in the last few years. And I think I can speak for all of the board members to say that we are listening. We're listening, we're still listening. And we don't have all the solutions either, but we're trying to work to get there. What I've continually heard, and I heard at the Multnomah County Open House, is you can't cut service, even if it means increasing rates. And so I guess I would say we can't have it both ways. We're facing a situation where we're going to have to do one or the other, and hopefully at some point we start to work against that and improve. So this is difficult today. I have seconded already the motion, and we'll continue to talk about this. There are no easy answers to this. I feel from some of the earlier testimony, particularly I think it was Jonathan talking about transparency and partnerships. I hope we can work towards that. I'm sorry to feel we haven't been as transparent. I think Beth would be more than happy to sit down with Opal and talk about the numbers. And we want to improve upon that going forward. So we're in a difficult budget situation, and this is one of the issues that we're tackling first. So.
Thank you. Director Stovall.
Good morning and welcome, everybody. I'd like to just give a few words. First off, just letting you know my perspective on kind of leadership and looking at this board opportunity. And I know it was mentioned, I believe it was Mr. Levine who said that, it's disappointing that he's going to be presenting in front of 2 new board members. And I'd like to reassure you that both Bruce Warner, President Warner, and I have spent a considerable amount of time looking at this issue because it's very, very key. It's very, very important. So I want to certainly let you know that this isn't being taken lightly. I want to second, thank everyone for their input and their insight. I can't tell you how important it is to listen to the folks that utilize these services continuously. I also want to say that one of the things that I look to do is create balance. Balance among everything that we need to look at and adjust and ensure that we've got a great balance in the decisions that we're making. One of the challenges that I face personally is the difficulty of this decision, but that's going to be my cross to bear. But there's also the notion that we don't understand, and we each have our own lives that we've lived. We each have our own relatives that we look at, that we deal with various things on a daily basis that affect our lives in various ways. And so I don't want to minimize the challenge that everybody faces in this room. And today we're dealing with fare increases, but there are various things that we deal with on a daily basis that affect our lives. And so I'm just trying to, right in this moment, give you the window into what some of us face that may not be directly associated with this issue, but are across the board key issues that we all face, whether you have needs or whether you do not, whether you have a disability or whether you do not. And so from a situation of appreciation, which a lot of you express, the things that you deal with on a daily basis, to allow us to have a window into your challenges is what I truly, truly appreciate, because it does give me an image as to some of the things that you face on a daily basis. I will tell you that CAT actually holds a lot of sway for me in this decision. This is a committee that we lean on for direction and input and insight. And the chair there is keenly aware of the issues that each of us face. What Mr. Oster brought to us this morning was some keen insight. And Mr. Joymer, I appreciate your input in regards to the difficulty and the decisions that we make this morning. And again, we do not, and I do not take it lightly, and a lot of deliberation and conversation has gone into this. Mr. Levine, I'm big on relationships, and I'm big on understanding, I'm big on listening. And so with that, I will extend my heartfelt desire to come and listen to what you have to say, to come and take a walk in your shoes at some point in time in the near future. Because I do believe that gives us some insight that may or may not be held in the writings that we read and in the information that we receive, but it does give us the opportunity to come and put our eyes and ears in places that we just normally may or may not have that opportunity. So I will extend that invitation, I will accept the invitation to come and listen to what you've given us this morning in regards to a personal perspective into those things that you deal with on a daily basis. So I appreciate, again, all of your time, and thank you for your input and your testimony.
Thank you. A handful of comments. As each of the board members has That said, we do appreciate the comments that have been made over the last almost 7 or 8 months. For those of us that sit up here, this is not an easy process. While we are not disabled individually, I think we've been emotionally and personally informed in a very, very important way. Yet we are not disabled, but we're going to try and make the best decision possible. There has not been a rush to decide this. I was the person who made the motion last summer to delay consideration of this. The reason for that was I was seeking additional evaluation. Some of that has come from our community to provide for an opportunity for the federal government to act in some manner to increase its commitment to those on subsistence, and hope, beyond hope, that there would be some improvement in the employment picture of the metropolitan area. As you've heard, there's this balancing act, and quite interestingly, in that same period of time, we have heard from those that favor bike and pedestrian service, employer service, suburban service, inner city community service, environmental justice, and general ridership to do this or do that, but don't do that. So we're balancing this. Included, we've heard very, very significant comments from the disabled and the elderly community. And at the same time, we're balancing this financial picture that has a requirement on us to operate in a balanced budget manner. As we move forward, and I've said these things before, I would ask our board to do several things, and ask our management and ask our community to do several things. One is to continue to invest in fare collection, which Neil is committed to invest in increased public safety along our bus lines and within our stations, but just also within our communities. We have partners in that. Those aren't just the police service, they're the citizens. I think it's time that we invest in greater community stability, and that doesn't have to come if you're carrying a ticket, a gun, a baton, or some badge. I think we have an opportunity and a requirement upon ourselves as individuals to practice greater civility. And is that a partial solution to the issues of what occurs within transit? I think it is. We also have to work with our community partners who are as challenged financially to provide accessibility by sidewalk or other means so that folks can get to and feel safe accessing fixed route bus, Wes, and Max. Bruce has asked for an additional analysis. I think we can provide for that analysis while also increasing for April 1st, 2012, and the prospective increase that the resolution calls for on April 1st, 2013. We can participate in that additional analysis and still adopt this fare increase and have the confidence of the community and the confidence of this of our management that this board is independent in its actions, and if it found through additional evaluation that there were system changes or fare changes, that we are strong enough to make those changes and do so to provide for service that is both within budget and fair to our riders. I'm glad to hear that, Neil, that we've taken steps to continue to provide for improvement of this. Is it a capacitor issue? I'd ask if we could monitor and provide the board on a quarterly basis any reports of those incidents, and not only that we're taking steps to do that, but let's hear back and report to the community about instances of that. What I've learned, and it isn't from being in communications for 38 years, that part of our problem in life is that we don't share enough information or engage sufficiently. So if we do share back these reports, I think we will overcome some of the anecdotal or the real numbers the real problems and address them both by sharing the information more effectively. So I'm in favor of this motion, but I'm also in favor of the continued evaluation and the confidence that engaging our community, we can provide additional solutions by engaging, whether it's the Veterans Disabled Services, Ride Connection, churches, our municipalities, that we may not overcome the 30-cent increase in the fares, but we will overcome some of the problems that have been spoken to us over the last 7 months.
Thank you. Dr. Bethel?
Thank you. I guess I want to start off by saying that, first of all, it's not been a pre-decided decision by me. It has been one that I've taken time to listen to the testimony, to sit into the CAP meetings, those times that since I've been appointed, to listen to what has been said, to read somewhat the same things over and over again that came from the same people over and over again, which emphasized their point. But by no means has any of it been taken lightly. I also want to say is that I understand what you mean by saying fixed income, but I want you to also realize that there are other people who live on fixed income as well. They're known as the working poor. They're known as those who have a job but just still are trying to stretch dollars. So when we talk about those who are without and living with fixed, let's be inclusive of all. We're not trying to, and I'm not trying to, balance this out on the backs of one group. It has to be balanced out on everyone who has to take a ride. We can't get beyond the fact that things are costing more for fuel, for equipment, for salaries, and by no means are we, in my opinion, have we violated anything of the ADA. From my understanding and reading and looking, I believe that we are within what we are supposed to do. Now, I know there are going to be differences. I can see persons who are disagreeing already, but you know what? You all are entitled to our opinions, and I respect that, and I wish you would respect mine as well. So being at fixed income, not pre-decided, but the fact remains that something has to be done. And I believe what is being proposed is very equitable and fair in terms of what we're going to do in proposing the increase to the lift fares. And I echo and I support what Steve Clark, fellow director, has said. But if we find that there are some other things that have changed, please know that we do feel that we have enough within us to go back and look at that and take that into account, make any necessary changes that may need to be made in terms of making sure things are done right. With that, I thank you for all of your comments. Whether we have agreed or disagreed, I still thank you for expressing those. Thank you for your support. To all of those members of CAT, I thank you for your support of this. Even to those who were not in favor of it, I thank you for your position, because it takes all of us standing, speaking, giving our opinion that will make this a better place for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Well, first off, I want to say thank you to everybody who's here taking the time, and some of you sound like you're taking a lot of time to be able to make your time available so that we can hear from you today. It is appreciated. The good thing about being the president is I get to hear the comments from everybody else, and I think they really have captured the tone and the issues that we have to deal with in this decision. It is a tough decision. I don't like making it on my first meeting as a Trimet board. But I have taken into consideration your testimony. I've looked at the information in the past that was submitted. And I commend the board for taking the time to take some additional review of this matter and amend the proposal to make it better. I appreciate the work of the Citizens Accessibility Committee and their work in that and coming up with something that would work for all of us. I also want to say that I reserve the right to be smarter tomorrow as we get into the budget discussion. And as we look at the resources and look at the projections, look at some of the analysis that may come forward, it allows us to save some dollars. Maybe we can not do the service reductions at the level we're looking at. And I want to stress to you, we're just starting the budget deliberations. And there's a number of forums where you're going to have an opportunity to provide input. And ultimately, it's going to come back to this board where we're going to have to make some hard decisions on the budget. But it's clear that our budget is not sustainable. We need to make adjustments in terms of expenditures and in resources to be able to live in the future, because we don't want to be in this position on an annual basis. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about this proposal. It's starting to get us set to look at some of the things we need to do to increase resources. But the budget that I've seen, the proposal that you've set out, really isn't a proposal yet. I guess it's your initial cut. Does show, again, service reductions. It shows staff reductions, and it does include increases. And I don't like increases either. One of the people I remember was that we don't like increases without better customer service, and I agree, and that's what we want to be shooting for. And I think that the things that the board is talking about, we're committed to make some improvements and help the system get better. But after looking at it, I think this is the right thing to do. It is fair, it is equitable, as Dr. Bethel mentioned, and I know it will impact some people greatly. I look forward to reviewing our budget further, reviewing, again, our programs and our fees on a regular basis, which is what we all need to do to make this a successful enterprise for everybody. So with that, unless there's other comments or questions, I'm going to ask that we consider a vote on the matter of the adoption of Ordinance 321, which is to adopt a lift fare increases, repealing the lift half-month fare pass, and amending the Trimet Code, Chapter 19. I believe we need to do a roll call vote on this. So,
roll call.
So, Councilor, would you call the roll for us?
I will, thank you. Board President Warner.
Aye.
And Board Member Bethel.
Aye.
Board Member Clark.
Aye.
Board Member Stovall.
Aye.
Board Member Schweitzer.
Aye.
Board Member Prosser.
Aye.
And Board Member Saragosa.
Aye.
Unanimous.
The ordinance has been adopted, and again, I appreciate your appearing before us this morning. I'm looking at the clock here. I understand the time that we normally try to get out of here is about 11:30. We have 13 people signed up for public testimony for items not on the agenda. Is there willingness to go till noon on this one for the board? Okay, what that means... Go ahead.
Before we get into that, though, there was one communication we received in the context of our last item on the ordinance. I didn't want to address this during that because, quite honestly, my comment is not related to the ordinance. But it was a letter from Mr. Levine dated February 17th. He talks about a specific instance where he felt the operator on the bus he was on was not following procedure. And one of the things that is important to me is that when we get complaints that we do follow up with investigations and feedback. And I want to check and make sure we're going to follow up on that.
Absolutely. Any service complaint does get definite follow back, and if Mr. Lee hasn't been followed up with yet, he will be shortly.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else? All right, well, let's get into the public forum. First off, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Yes,
Adjourn the meeting, the regular meeting. We're going to go into the public comment session now. And I'm looking at the clock. It's about half an hour before 12 o'clock sharp. And if there's 12 people here, if we limit you to 3 minutes, I mean 3 minutes, so we can get through this in 36 minutes and be out of here in about noon. So I'm going to be very, very aggressive in terms of asking you to wind up your testimony right after the signals is set there. So with that, I'd like to ask Julie Ward and Teresa Kishai to come up, please.
Will cause inequity for cultural, immigrant, refugee, and working class communities. First, reducing bus service and transfer options will impact minorities and family wage earners in far greater numbers than it will in other communities. 42% of my colleagues come from ethnic communities, and roughly 40% of them speak English as a second language. Their mothers and fathers whose families rely solely on buses to get them to work, to church, to the doctor, and then back home again. It's these families that will suffer the most from the proposed cuts, not the average downtown commuter. Secondly, Opal recently found that today's average Trimet rider relies heavily on single-ticket fares because they can't afford the monthly pass. Opal projects limited transfer options could add as much as $300 a year to the average rider's expenses. For working wage earners like those who work at Gunderson, this can mean having to cut back on essentials like groceries and doctor's bills. We just think this is the wrong cut at the wrong time. Thirdly, in a city like Portland, where we're trying to get people back to work, bus service cuts determine whether an unemployed person can get to a working wage job. If they can't get to work, they can't get the job. For Gunderson, this is a reality. If you consolidate bus routes 16 and 17 as proposed, you inhibit our ability to recruit young, entry-level workers that rely solely on Trimet. And finally, these changes conflict with our company's values. We strive to build strong, stable, vibrant communities and improve their quality of life. We believe Trimet shares these values, and that's why we're so disappointed in the current budget proposals. On behalf of Gunderson, our employees, their families, their communities, and neighborhoods that we're a part of, we strongly urge you to reconsider the plan to reduce bus routes and create a one-way ticket. We simply think this is the wrong cut at the wrong time. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Appreciate it. Teresa?
Hello, good morning. My name is Teresa Keishi Soto, new name. I'm a transit-dependent bus rider who rides buses number 9, 17, 714, and the blue, green, and red MAX lines. I live in outer southeast Portland. For the past year and a half, I have been a member of OPAL, Environmental Justice Oregon. It wasn't too long that I came before you to advocate on behalf of OPAL's campaign for a fair transfer. I came with the support of 6,000 bus riders who signed petitions in support of the campaign and the backing of 30 nonprofit agencies in the Portland outer area. It was clear then and continues to be very apparent that Trimet is truly insensitive to the needs and the stresses of transit-dependent bus riders. Trimet's latest callous decision to eliminate transfers and force single-fare bus riders to pay for an all-day ticket shows just how out of touch Trimet is with us transit-dependent bus riders. Frequent or regular riders of Trimet who are transit-dependent make up 34% of Trimet riders. Of those living in the Tri-County area, 53% of those riding the bus earn less than $30,000 per year. Living in Southeast Portland and working for Human Solutions, I know what this translates to for bus riders who must access social service agencies for assistance with housing, electric, water, and gas bills, as well as commute to clinics who accept patients with no insurance and trips to multiple food banks and churches to ensure an adequate supply of food for them and their families. This is apart from the daily commute to work, which has been made even more stressful by the recent cuts in service. Why, Mr. McFarland, is Trimet going for the jugular of the transit-dependent single-fare ticket bus rider? Those of you who have experienced poverty know what it's like to turn the couch and mattress over, to look in cupboards, closets, under rugs, and door frames in an attempt to put together enough money for the latest emergency. Trimet needs to do the same thing, metaphorically speaking. Trimet needs to look at the lack of efficiency prevalent in its current systems. Bus drivers will tell you how they ride around all day without collecting fares because frequently the fare boxes break. A full bus followed by an empty bus of the same line is also constant. I'm referring specifically to bus lines number 9 and number 71. I have heard testimony to the fact that buses can be converted to propane gas. What I'm asking you is to look for fuel efficiency, to plan for future savings and cleaner air. I'm asking you to think outside the box. I'm asking you to look for alternatives. Thank you very much. What I want is for Trimet to restore affordable, reliable, and efficient bus service. And thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, the next two are Myrna, thank you. Andrade, that's right, and Keith Schultz. Excuse me. Schultz, I'll give you that. Feel free to help me with any of those names.
Good morning, Trimet board members. My name is Myrna Andrade Booker. I live east of 82nd, and this is my second time speaking before the board. I thank you. I am a longtime bus rider since my childhood. My mother learned to drive, so our means of transportation was the RTD, Rapid Transit District, in California. I followed the tradition when I moved to Portland, Oregon in 1989. I did learn to drive, but I choose to be a transit-dependent bus rider because it is my way of contributing to the environment and preserving the world we live in. I attend school 3/4 time, hold 2 part-time jobs, and raise a family. I am here today to express my concern and the concern of many transit-dependent riders who will be affected by Trimet's budget proposal. Trimet's budget proposal to eliminate round trips, raise fares, and cut service is not compromising. I'm a frequent single fare paid transit-dependent rider on bus lines 9, 4, 17, 72, and all MAX lines. Depending on my destination, I will board other bus lines. The current round trip system allows me the freedom to make numerous connections throughout my day within the current allotted time. Explain to us how your proposal of yet another fare increase to convert to a simpler, flat fare system where all rides cost the same, no matter where you are traveling. How is this even possible when you are proposing to eliminate round trips? One-way trips will not complete our destination. You will be robbing each of our transit-dependent riders of our freedom to ride where we choose to go by eliminating round trip. How can you envision the proposal of yours to be able to accommodate each and every one of us who is struggling with a loss of employment, less pay, or fixed income? What do you, the Trimet board, say to the transit-dependent riders who cannot meet your demand? Not everyone can afford a monthly pass, let alone a $5 day pass. I am one transit-dependent bus rider who lives within my needs and means and cannot afford a day pass. Hence involves transit users in the decision-making process of this budget proposal. How can we possibly afford to accept Trimet's proposal to raise adult and youth fare, a 10-cent increase for an adult fare and 15-cent increase for youth? This may not be much, but it is. Youth are expected to pay another proposal increase on top of what they cannot already afford. My youngest son and friends will rather walk to their daily outings because the current transfer time of an hour or hour and a half is not sufficient on a single fare transfer. The budget proposal that you intend to pass will be a downturn for Trimet. Look at the big picture and see how important this is to me and every transit-dependent rider that pays to board every day. Trimet says that it's only 5% that will be impacted. I don't know where that number comes from, but even if we accept that number, that's still 2 million boardings a year, 1 million trips by people who are often totally dependent on the bus to get, to get around. I say to each of you to consider meeting us halfway. Help us preserve a fair fare by allowing us 3 hours in a single fare transfer. Please give us the exceptional service Trimet is capable of delivering through their transit-dependent riders. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, good morning. I am Keith Schultz, good old German name, an Opel member and transit advocate. I live in Gresham using lines 9, 4, 20, the Blue Line, among others. I'm dependent on Trimet for all my daily transportation needs. The proposed changes to Trimet's transportation plan in an effort to balance the budget will affect mostly poor and transit-dependent people like me. Even though I am a pass user, I can't obtain my pass until the 3rd of the month when my check comes. As for the raincoat, I've been doing this for the last few months. I'm still reminding you about the lack of transparency in your budget process. And with the information I have about the new 2013 budget, you claim a $3 million revenue increase with the elimination of round trips. With a $400 million budget, that's less than 1%. I feel more than that will be lost by people not taking that short ride to the store or to the get your prescriptions, whatever. Still, others, I believe, will show their anger towards Trimet for pricing them out of the system. To give an example, I live on Powell Boulevard. The least expensive grocery stores in the area are on Division Street. I travel east on the 9 to the Gresham Transit Center, then take number 4 westbound. I mean, under this new proposal, you know, being on limited income too, I need to watch my grocery budget. That's why I do it that way. I think there are other options to explore to balance the budget, which are being overlooked. Maintaining round trips would ensure those of us on limited incomes without other options allow us to maintain our mobility. And thank you for your time. I hope my testimony will be taken into consideration when you finalize this budget.
Thank you, Keith. Very succinct. Why don't we have the Jonathan Act come together? Jonathan Hunt and Jonathan Ulster.
I got my own act.
Well, you look like you go together here.
I think Jonathan had to step out.
All right.
I will keep my comments brief. What I would like to briefly talk about, Tiffany, see how this gets me, is the health of our operators. And although if you ask Trimet what one of the major costs associated with labor is health insurance. So one of our number one issues has had little to no conversations about. We have 2 healthcare providers that we currently use and have used for over 20 years, Blue Cross and Kaiser. We spend millions of dollars for Mercer Corporation, and I ask for what? We don't get any value out of it. I've asked repeatedly through my tenure to have wellness programs, health fairs, and it's fell on deaf ears. This is not my first trip to the rodeo. I negotiate contracts all the time. In Lane Transit, we created a wellness program that brought the union and management together that talked about those driving costs. The cost of health insurance is going up. What are we doing to make people healthier? We're looking at the schedules. We're still not having enough time to go to point A to point B. The recovery time is being eaten up, and our operators are not getting the necessary time to even have the option to have a healthy break and meal. It's unfortunate, and we continue to see the effects as our members continue to grow. They grow in size. Type 2 diabetes is within our industry dramatically. But we're doing absolutely nothing to fix it. And it's just ironic that here we are with this huge budget problem. Here we are with all of these huge costs, but nothing has been done. I mean, literally, we have had none. So our operators are susceptible to illnesses. Every day as I'm fighting my cold, and everybody else that's in this industry, as they board the bus, they are getting that information to our operators. We use our health insurance more. The statistics that came out show that operators are more likely to die earlier in life because of their job. Some of us are still in this world that, hey, driving a bus is really not that big a deal. The amount of stress that's put on an operator, driving their route, going through the call annunciations. By the way, you're completely wrong on ADA. You're not 100% compliant, which is what the law says. And you have not done what you and past general managers have stated concerning the disabled community and the union to try to get that together. The only way you could be 100% compliant is to have total automation, and we have not gotten there. Which means our operators are doing all of these different things. The statistics show that the stress on an operator is equivalent to a firefighter or a police officer heading in their 911 mode. We are not taking this seriously, and we know when our drivers are distracted, lives are costed. The general manager, unfortunately, didn't tell you the gentleman's name, our operator, Dale Allred, that passed away this last Sunday on the 19th on his layover in a toilet at the Rose Quarter. These are major problems that we need to look at. And guess what? They're right in line with what's driving our costs. So now we're going to take, with your fare increase, we're going to push people onto mass transit. The system currently cannot hold these people, and they cannot get quickly on and off the system to provide efficient service. So that means it's going to create more problems and create more stress on our operators, which is going to create more health problems, which is going to increase our health insurance. I will end on this note, sir. Mr. Chairman and the board, you do have a very difficult job. And I will continue to reach out to each and every one of you, because this format is absolutely ridiculous for me to try to solve my problems. I get 3 minutes. I've repeatedly asked to be on the agenda, and it falls on deaf ears. I represent over 2,000 members at Trimet and 2 LIFT programs of over close to 500 people. And this is the amount of time that I have able to articulate and talk to each of you. It's ridiculous. The gentleman said previously, these should be your allies. We should be working collectively together. We are not. And we're sitting in the court system now because Trimet continues to break the law. And it's showing. And it's going to come back again. And it's going to be even more shortfalls. I'm envied.
Thank you.
So instead of using the resources properly, this organization used to be labor-friendly, is now anti-union, and is spending, and I hope this board goes and requests and looks at how much money has been spent on colored ads, on promotions, on websites, on information to be anti-union. It's unacceptable. It needs to stop, and I request your assistance. Thank you.
And I guess what I want to make clear, John, thank you very much for your testimony, is labor is a big part of Trimet. You know, our employees are our biggest resource. I think 80% of our funds, isn't that right, is spent on personal services. And we can't do the work without you. And we know that. And I hope that we do have a partnership in moving things forward. I don't like us being adversaries, and sometimes labor negotiations cause that to occur. But it's my intent to, again, work with you, and we want to have, as I said, negotiated settlements if we can, and we want to get to some of the issues that you're talking about.
But people have to return our calls and say, you know what, we're going to take you up on it.
Right, so
this last ruling could have saved the district a ton of money. But if you ask the leadership team, they'll say they were too busy and couldn't get together to respond to us.
I understand. A lot of stuff's gone on, and I'm not part of that history, but again, let's continue to work and moving forward in a partnership way. That's all I ask. I appreciate that, and maybe yourself or some of the board members would actually take an interest in being in the labor relations and solving this contract. It's not unheard of for board members to be a part of the actual labor negotiations. John, let's not solve the issue here, but I appreciate your comments, okay? Thank you very much. All right. Jonathan Oster, did he come back?
He did not, but he sends his best wishes.
All right. So Michael Levine and Pedro Moreno.
Thank you. Pedro.
No Pedro.
Thank you again, and I'll be brief. And Doctor, I'm sorry about my facial expressions, and you are right. Everybody should be respected. And it was obvious what the vote was going to be, and obviously you know how I feel about what just transpired. And I can't blame you or any other board member for your opinions when you're not told the truth. When Neil McFarlane would sit there and tell you that Trimet's in compliance with the ADA, when it's out of compliance in so many areas, is absolutely ridiculous. In my letter to you, I've challenged any and all of you to come out on the mall with me just as one example. I will point out non-compliance, which is ADA non-compliance. I will show you the federal guidelines that are not gray area, that are black and white. And I've asked you, as Neil's boss, to ask Neil to come out at the same time. I would like to see Neil say that this is not out of compliance when I show you it is, and when I have the federal guidelines to back it up. John talked about what's going to happen to the fixed route system because of putting more and more people with disabilities onto the fixed route system that are not going to be able to continue on Lyft. Eventually, the prices will become equal, which is terrible. But right now, even with the 30-cent increase, it's still going to be less expensive on Lyft, but they're not going to be able to afford to even stay there with just the 30-cent increase. And an honored citizen, people with disabilities, can ride for $1. Where are the people that don't have the money going to go? You know, we talked about a lot of different things in the past. We talked about free rides for people with disabilities that were Lyft eligible, so they would have the choice, not forced, that they have the opportunity to see if they could use fixed route. That fell on deaf ears as well. There is so much wrong. Back to what I was saying before about people with disabilities being discriminated against. It happens every single day. Every single day. And I'm sorry, I can't read the nameplates, but thank you for bringing up the issue I shared as far as the ride I had. If I could tell you how many times that has happened over the years, it's unbelievable. I don't file complaints with customer service any longer because I'm tired of boilerplate letters. I'm tired of writing to Neil McFarland because I can't get an answer. And the issues in the letter that you all read, he is wrong. He has not answered me. Trimet has not answered me on all the issues. One of the issues in that letter is Trimet's management, which I found out about at the last board meeting, testified to at the last board meeting, and put it in the letter that Trimet management is telling operators they don't have to follow the ADA. They do not have to use public address systems. They have the option. That is a violation of the ADA. I'll be glad to show you the code. Trimet is not in compliance. And please, one more thing and I'll go away, at least for today. You cannot believe what Mr. McFarland tells you. And just because he says it, doesn't make it so.
Thank you. The next two are Tony Pereza and Con Pham. I know I butchered your name, so I mean.
Yo creo que voy a necesitar un intérprete en inglés porque mi testimonio es en español.
Does Trimet have an interpreter available?
Here now.
Well, I guess I'm going to interpret, but I think if we're advocating for equity and transparency, this is something that needs to happen at every single board meeting in public, public meetings that we have.
Point well made.
Yo estoy aquí para dar mi testimonio de mi propia situación que yo ocupo todo el tiempo el sistema de los autobuses.
Well, I'm here to provide my testimony about the transportation system that I use. And this is going to take more than 3 minutes, so.
Yo necesito el autobús para ir a mi trabajo, a las tiendas y a la iglesia.
So I use the bus system to go to work, to go shopping, and to go to church.
Tengo 2 trabajos, me levanto desde las 7 de la mañana y llego a mi casa hasta las 11 de la noche.
I have 2 jobs. I wake up at 7 and then I come home until 11 o'clock.
Mi único día de descanso es el domingo, que necesito para ir a la iglesia con mis hijos.
The only day that I have rest is Sunday, and that's the day that I go to church with my family.
Y si van a pensar que subir las tarifas de los boletos, para mí no es justo porque yo nomás gano el mínimo.
And if you're thinking about raising the fares, I don't think that's just because I just earn minimum wage.
Necesito para mis hijos de la escuela y para la renta de la vivienda. So, yo pienso que...
And so I have other expenses to pay as well, like the rent, provide for food for my children and my family, and other stuff that comes with having a family.
No es justo para nosotros los hispanos que ganamos poco, nos quieran cobrar de más.
It's not just for us, the Hispanic Latino community, to raise the fare if we don't earn a lot of money.
A veces necesito yo pedir raite para ir a la tienda porque a veces está lloviendo y en la parada del autobús donde yo vivo no hay protección.
Sometimes I need to ask my friends if they can give me a ride because I don't want to be waiting outside while it's raining and there's no cover at the bus stops.
Y por eso pido que por favor, si ustedes consideran nuestra petición, no solo nosotros los hispanos, también sé que hay muchos que ganan lo mínimo, que nos tomen por favor en cuenta.
So I'm asking you to consider our voice, the Hispanic voice, and I know there are other communities that earn minimum wage as well, so you take them into consideration too.
Gracias y que Dios los bendiga.
Thank you and God bless you.
Hi, my name is Khan Pham, and I'm a longtime bus rider and a member of OPAL and Bus Riders Unite. I'm also a student at Portland State, and as a student in the Urban Studies program, I'm here to express my concern about the way Trimet is presenting its budgetary data and the lack of transparency in Trimet's budget process. Meaningful participation in the process means Trimet needs to show the public how it arrives at its projections for the revenue streams in 2012 to 2013. I understand the need to look at conservative worst-case scenarios, but Trimet needs to be transparent about how these are estimates rather than posing these numbers as absolutes. Just one example, I think Keith mentioned about how squishy the numbers are. Portland's on target to have a surplus in payroll taxes this year, and it had a surplus last year as well. And interestingly enough, that surplus in payroll taxes is roughly equivalent to the $3 million which Trimet says it would gain by taking away round trips from single-ticket cash riders, who incidentally are also the most likely to be transit-dependent and low-income. Meaningful participation in the budget process means having access to the information we need to truly evaluate the process. It's difficult to evaluate and vet the information without seeing the actual budget. I want to be able to see how Trimet calculated this shortfall for next year. Meaningful participation also means having a voice in determining what options are being considered. In the survey and forms that Trimet presents, it consistently says that federal funds for light rail are restricted to capital projects, but it doesn't mention the other portion, the significant chunk of capital cost that comes from the operating budget, which essentially means that we're raising bus fares to help pay for light rail. That may be a fine choice, but Trimet needs to be honest about what's happening, and it needs to include light rail in the list of options for consideration for cutting. I definitely acknowledge that Trimet has made significant efforts in including the public in its budget process, but it's not enough. Transit equity means involving the people most impacted in the decisions that will affect their lives. But that participation is just a show if Trimet just presents options that is already pre-selected. And presenting these selected cuts is the only option to cut. I urge Trimet to be more transparent about how it came up with its budget numbers and to open up the debate to include an honest conversation about the true cost of the light rail system and where the money is going to come from. It's the most transit-dependent riders who are going to have to pay for it, and those who are least capable of coping with the fare increases. And lastly, I just want to say that it's not about pitting the needs of bus riders against the needs of bus drivers. We totally support the bus drivers. They have a really stressful and demanding job, and they need the best health care. I invite Trimet to work with OPAL, with ATU, with other organizations as partners to think outside the box about ways we can fund this a just and equitable transit system. This might mean a carbon tax or other new strategies we haven't ever tried, but could help us fund a world-class transit system that serves everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Even Moore and Albert Rouse.
Coming up there, could you tell me what Opal is? I've never heard of it before, other than the good brand of my car. What is it?
It's an environmental justice organization, and we have a group called Bus Riders Unite that represents the bus riders.
No, I got it. I guess I need to on this slide.
Are there any liquids on the table? I'm not. Okay.
Go ahead.
So I appreciate all the work that Trimet has done to try to balance the budget and to share the information about its calculations and its rationale for taking the measures it's proposing. I feel like more information is needed if you do have the goal of being transparent and of convincing the ridership that these decisions are taken in their best interest. I want to believe that you have sympathy for low-income riders. I don't see why you wouldn't, but it's hard for me to see that with the information that's available For example, the $3 million additional revenue from making tickets both one way and flat fare and limited to 2 hours. I'd really like to know why the decision, exists to do all of those at once. Because I'm sitting here, as a low-income rider who knows a lot lower-income riders, wondering if only 5% of riders are taking those short hops, why is there, the motive to eliminate them? And have you considered, for example, the revenue impact of whatever trips are going to be avoided or consolidated by people who can't afford to do their usual transit use at these higher prices? I assume that there's been calculations done on this, and I'd really like to see it so that I can, have a lot of faith in the process and go out saying, yes, I'm happy to be paying more for my Trimet fare so that I don't have reduced service and so that we still have, working public transportation. Since it looks like I still have time, I kind of wanted to ask, does anybody ride the bus regularly? Someone asked about Max, but I didn't hear anything about bus. I'm really curious. You did? That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Albert?
Trying to think order of importance here. Sorry. Well, it's still jumped up. Mr. President, Mr. McFarland, Mr. Jonathan Hunt, I would like to have those three individuals together right after the meeting. Purpose is I would like, excuse me, hurry. I'd like for to have Harry Saporta and make it mandatory that he show up with me and objectively look at some safety concerns in the downtown area, as well as at least one safety concern with fixed route buses. Next subject. Yes? Oh, thank you. Next subject is ADA. I have to agree with Michael Levine. I've approached Trimet several times on ADA issues, and they're constantly ignored. I'd like to speak with someone about that. Quick comment about Lyft. Yes, I'm eligible. I do use it on rare occasion when fixed route would not work for me. And then I do use Lyft, but I use it very sparingly. The costs, according to the staff member yesterday, per trip cost is about $2.90, and it's the understanding that that includes all overhead, fuel, office help, and the whole ball wax. Last comment. Martin Luther King Day and the transit tracker and the schedule for that day. Announcements were made on transit tracker that some routes would be eliminated that day, some routes would have higher service that day. We had President's Day 2 days ago. No announcement was made that day for any changes. And we also have Veterans Day.
And what I'm getting at, I'll be brief, try to. These are federal holidays. In prior practice, they've always run a weekday schedule on federal holidays where most of the people, non-federal employees, went to work. Why make it special for that one day? It's unfair to the public that write the system. I asked Mr. Rose, who contacted me when I filed a complaint on that issue. He's not been able to find a satisfactory answer for me. In fact, he's not found any answer for me. Thank you for your time. And if I could have those individuals together after the meeting, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. I very much appreciate your comments today. So that concludes the public testimony.
And thanks to the water, whoever brought that.
Quite well. So again, thank you all for coming. There's a number of folks here, maybe some of the operators from Trimet, is that right? I'm looking at, no?
I'm a retiree.
You're a retiree, okay. I thought there's a number that were here, so again, thank you for what you do. I also appreciate you being involved here. I will point out before I close the meeting that there are a number of public hearings on the budget that are coming up. I think they start March 19th and continue on daily through the 22nd, and there's another one on the 27th. I think they're probably on our website, right?
They are indeed.
Okay, so if anybody wants to provide additional testimony on that or input to see what some of the other folks around the region are talking about in terms of the budget proposal, I want to stress it's still a proposal. It's not a done deal. There has been no decision. So again, thank you for your comments on the budget and the other comments. Is there other comments or thoughts from the board?
May I ask one quick question? Would someone meet me afterwards and tell me what the next proposed fare spread schedule is? Because I'm unaware of all that.
Well, we'll do that. Thank you very much. So with that, the meeting is ended. Thank you all for coming today.